This boy couldn't use magic. He awakened with a rank F body because he used to smoke. In this world, magic and portal hunting are revered, but everything changed when an alien from the planet Alpha Uri was reborn inside his body. For a being from another world, the laws of human magic meant nothing. The energy flowing through him now was absurd. Giryo became a genius, defeating monsters with a single attack, and then his body began to evolve 100 times faster than everyone else. Lying on a bed, a young man looks around without understanding, wondering where the hell he is. He then stares at his own hand, finding that moving mass of protein strange. He realizes that, fortunately, the soul of this body left not long ago. He feels proud and confident, thinking that the reincarnation plan was way too easy. Then he tests his voice and notices that adapting to the local language was very natural. Moving his body also doesn't seem to be a problem, but he feels that something is missing. We discover that, if everything had gone well, he should have full access to the memories. But for some bizarre reason, he can't remember anything about this body's life. Suddenly, a terrible headache hits him, as if everything were fragmented. He bends over in agony, feeling a pain that seems to tear his stomach from the inside. Desperate, he starts coughing and wonders what the hell went so wrong with the plan. He can barely breathe properly, trying to pull in air with great difficulty and pain. Then comes the shock of reality, and he realizes that this body died of starvation. It is explained that his magic had a rule: reincarnate into the being with the greatest energy on the planet. Collapsed on the ground, he realizes he forgot to consider the body's terrible condition. He complains that he expected to turn into an amoeba, but the stomach pain is unbearable. Since he just reincarnated, he laments that he won't be able to use his magic for now. He needs to adjust to the planet's energy, but first he has to find something to eat. A strong light bothers him, and when he opens his eyes, he is shocked by what he sees. He remembers that his home planet was liquid, a dark world with almost no starlight, but the place where he landed was a completely different scene from anything he knew. His eyes widen, surprised by the urban landscape and the light blue sky. It was a place with bright light, hot and dry air, and solid ground beneath his feet. His stomach growls loudly, and he realizes this is no time for sightseeing. He needs food. The problem is that, looking at the buildings, he can't find anything he can eat. He walks down the deserted street, wondering if there is anything edible around. Desperate, he shouts at the sky, questioning what kind of crazy planet this is. He finally understands why the previous owner died, since everything around is gray. Collapsed on the ground, he despairs, because at this rate, he will end up starving to death again. Suddenly, he hears a noise and sees an insect on the ground, but thinks it's too small. With no other option to satisfy his hunger, he grabs the cockroach and prepares to eat it. But just as he is about to take a bite, he hears footsteps approaching. He is shocked to see a member of his species, a child eating something. He examines the boy, a cub, and wonders what that thing in his mouth is. It is definitely food, so he throws the cockroach away, finding the snack delicious. Drooling with hunger, he is torn over whether or not to steal the little boy's food. He starts following the boy, passing by a wanted suspect poster. The boy suddenly stops, feeling that someone is behind him, and looks back suspiciously. When he turns around, he comes face to face with Gireo drooling, looking very suspicious. The boy gets scared and runs away while Gireo shouts for him to wait. After the boy runs off, he turns around and notices something different nearby. He finds a plant in a pot and realizes it is ornamental and doesn't seem edible. Thinking it's better than stealing, he grabs the plant and eats it, finding it delicious. But after the first bite, he stops, making a face as if he doesn't understand anything. Suddenly, he hears a terrifying scream coming from the direction the boy ran. He finds it strange that the boy would scream out of nowhere and decides to go see what's happening. The scene cuts to the boy, who is frozen in fear, trembling from head to toe. In front of him, a giant and bizarre creature appears, leaving the boy terrified. The monster stares at the boy with its glowing eyes, letting out a very sinister growl. The creature then jumps from the building toward the boy, who screams even louder. With a mouthful of sharp teeth, the monster prepares to pounce on the child. It lunges forward and bites onto the boy's backpack, leaving him trapped with nowhere to run. The monster lifts him up with its bite, and the boy screams desperately, but he manages to break free and crashes hard onto the ground. The creature crushes a car while chasing the boy, who runs for his life. About to be devoured, the boy cries for help, thinking this is the end. Gireo arrives and sees the scene, noticing that it is a bird, only the size of a house. The creature starts getting shocked, and Gireo finds it bizarre to run into something like that on the street. Shocked by the scene, he curses and complains, saying that this planet is a complete piece of crap. But then he stops to think and considers that maybe this could be a good thing. A memory of the body surfaces, and he remembers that he can eat birds and that they are delicious. He stares at the creature, thinking that he has finally found a wild animal worth hunting. Full of confidence, he already plans to dominate the planet as soon as he adjusts to the magical energy. At that moment, he feels something strange in the air, a presence that immediately catches his attention. A bluish energy comes out of the monster, and he realizes that it is coming toward him. Suddenly, he is enveloped by magical energy, an extremely powerful aura. He feels this force flowing through every cell of his body, and confirms that it is Earth's energy. But the amount is so great that he can't handle it and falls to his knees, overwhelmed by the power. It is explained that on other planets it was like a bucket, but here it is like a swimming pool. He goes crazy over the discovery and shouts that this is the real El Dorado. How lucky. With a victorious smile, he thinks that nothing is impossible with so much mana available. The little boy interrupts him, shouting for help and calling him sir, or rather, bro. Gireo sighs tiredly, wondering why he is asking an alien for help. He questions what would have happened if the alien were not a great mage like him. Gireo points at the boy's drink and says he will only help if he hands over the snack. The monster gets ready to attack, while the boy remains frozen in pure fear. Crying, the boy agrees to the deal, begging him to help as soon as possible. The boy runs behind him, and Gireo calls him a fool for turning his back on a predator. He then turns around and tells the boy to stay back, preparing for combat. We are told that he was a master mage, responsible for defending an entire planet. He boasts that he can disintegrate the creature's skin and bones with a flick of his finger. Gireo gets ready to attack, but falls silent when nothing happens. He doesn't understand and tries to play it off, saying it must be nervousness from the environment. He laughs at the situation, thinking he has seen it all, while the boy screams in terror. Then he tries his first spell, an explosion, but the result is a total failure. Without success, he tries using the water element, but the magic fails once again. He resorts to spiritual language and even a curse, but nothing works as it should. Confused, he wonders what the hell is happening there. Desperate, he finally realizes the problem. His magic isn't working. Without his powers, he becomes the prey and runs for his life, screaming for help. He runs into the middle of the street without looking, and is almost hit by a car at high speed. Traffic turns into chaos, with several cars honking for him to get out of the way. An angry driver curses at him, asking if he wants to get run over and die. Gireo realizes he needs to change direction, because the beast will keep following him. The monster ignores the car and simply steps on it, crushing the vehicle completely. The creature lets out a terrifying scream while Gireo runs without looking back. The monster leaps at high speed toward Gireo. He keeps running down the avenue, not really understanding what is going on. He wonders why the monster is only chasing him, and feels his energy running out. Out of breath, he can barely breathe, since he hasn't eaten anything to regain his strength. Seeing that it won't work, he decides to change routes again, jumping onto the sidewalk. The monster lands hard on the asphalt, opening a crater right where he was. The creature makes a powerful leap, destroying the street as it continues the pursuit. Then the beast takes flight once more, preparing for a devastating aerial attack. He looks up in shock, wondering how the hell that thing can fly. Running desperately, he realizes that at this pace there is no escape. He will be eaten. Suddenly, he feels a strong impact, as if something had broken inside him, and he wonders if this body had some kind of disability. The monster attacks again, and he runs screaming through the debris to save himself, but he ends up tripping and closes his eyes, almost being devoured, and a strange red light appears, coming toward the giant bird. It hits the monster directly with a gigantic blast. The creature is thrown far away by the force of the attack, which destroys everything around it. Gireo lies on the ground, holding his head, not understanding anything that happened. Then red feathers begin to fall slowly, leaving him even more confused. He approaches the fallen monster and asks out loud what just happened. Walking through the rubble, he wonders if the creature crashed into the wall by itself. But when he looks closer, he starts to think that the creature might just be a chicken-brained idiot. He mocks the creature, which flew at a dangerous angle and smashed into the wall, but then his stomach growls loudly, reminding him that the hunger hasn't gone away. He then approaches the beast and wonders if that giant bird is edible. With a smile, he swallows hard, since the amino acid structure should be compatible. Suddenly, he hears something and turns his face, sensing a new presence there. A woman in a suit appears out of nowhere, walking toward him through the wreckage. Her eyes widen, completely shocked by the scene of destruction. Meanwhile, the little boy runs with a police officer, warning that the monster went after someone else. The woman quickens her pace, while the boy shouts that they need to get there quickly. She asks the officer if that is the last confirmed location, and he says yes. With a serious look, she tells both of them to stay back because the situation is dangerous. We are told that this monster is the beginner killer, which lived in portals. Its rank rose to C because it could attack at the same speed as a missile. The woman grows tense, knowing she must arrive before there is a fatal victim. Then she finally reaches the site and finds the beast, but notices that there is a person there. Her eyes widen, unable to fully understand what she is seeing in front of her. Gireo simply stares at the fallen monster, as if it were nothing special to him. The woman is shocked, wondering if somehow he killed the beast by himself. At that moment, the officer arrives running with the boy and asks her what happened there. The boy then shouts to his hero, saying that he finally managed to bring the police. The officer approaches, completely relieved, and thanks Gaireo for the great job he did. He explains that they were called because of the monster, and asks if he is a hunter. Gaireo looks confused, having no idea what a hunter is. We discover that he can't remember, because that memory didn't come with the body. The officer thanks him again, while the woman finds it strange that he solved everything so quickly. She becomes suspicious, doubting that he ran into the monster by chance. It is explained that the monster's habitat is in a portal, and that it is easier to hunt it outside, but she notices that he seems to have killed the creature with a direct frontal attack. Because of that, she wonders if that mysterious man is at least a rank C hunter. But Gaireo ignores everything and points at the little boy, drawing his attention with a warning. He looks at the boy seriously, and reminds him of the promise they made earlier. With little choice, the boy hands over the popsicle to Gaireo, still somewhat unwilling. He takes a big sip, and his reaction is pure ecstasy, as if it were the taste of the gods. It is explained that he forgot how good eating is, since he evolved into a body that didn't need it. The woman is shocked, wondering if he stole a popsicle from a poor child. With shameless nerve, he even says hi to her while drinking. She then formally introduces herself, saying her name is Sean Wu Yan, from the Hunters Association. The woman extends her hand for a handshake, but ends up grabbing his sticky, messy hand. She wipes her hand with a tissue and asks him to show his hunter license. He is confused by the request and asks her what the hell a hunter license is. Thinking quickly, he tries to make up an excuse and says he doesn't have the license with him right now. She then warns that she will look him up in the association to confirm his identity. Then the woman asks what his name is and he freezes because he doesn't know the body's name. She becomes suspicious of his silence, finding the whole situation very strange. The woman loses patience and asks if he at least registered as a hunter. She freaks out and shouts that he isn't registered and even used his powers on the street. She yells that this is illegal, but Gaireo puts on an unfriendly expression. He has no idea what she is talking about, while the boy takes pictures of him. With a cold sweat, he swallows hard and realizes that he might be seriously screwed. He then changes his mind and says that of course he is registered, surprising the woman. Lying, he says he forgot his license at home, but that he will get it quickly if she waits. Gaireo then turns his back and simply starts walking away from the group slowly. While walking, he thinks that he will never come back to that alley again in his life. The scene changes to a messy apartment, and he starts looking for something. He then finds a wallet and discovers an important document inside it. On the ID, he learns that his new name is Gaireo and accepts his fate. But he doesn't find any license and wonders if the body really wasn't a hunter. He notices a full ashtray, and is shocked by the number of cigarettes there. Curious about it, he picks up the pack of cigarettes to take a closer look. Suddenly, a flash of memory hits his mind, bringing back a very specific recollection. A memory surfaces, and he remembers that the owner of the body used to smoke frequently. Angrily, he crushes the cigarette pack, realizing that the guy was an addict. We are told that smoking is fatal for mages, who use internal and external energy. A question is then asked about which organ connects the two energies to create magic. The answer is the lungs, the part of the respiratory system that serves as a catalyst. He finally understands the reason and shouts that this is why his magic wasn't working. Indignant, he wonders what kind of psychopath would deliberately destroy their own lungs. He already knew that humans were primitive, but he didn't imagine they were this crazy. With his hand on his head, he tries to calm down so he can think of a solution to the problem. He accepts that it is his fault, since magical energy blinded him at the moment of choice. But he believes that there must be a way to fix this body's problems. With a determined look, he declares that he won't give up after everything he's been through. He decides that, since he is going to live on this new land, the best thing to do is to be happy. The scene shifts to the police station, with the officer scolding him for the trouble. With his head down, he only apologizes, while the station looks like a madhouse. He thinks he underestimated life on a strange planet, since he didn't expect to be arrested. He had barely arrived on Earth, and he laments that he ended up in jail within just a few hours. 10 minutes later, his record comes back clean, leaving a mother and her daughter shocked. Outside the station, Gaireo can only think about one thing. He was starving. He needs to investigate Earth, but first he has to deal with the body's lack of nutrients. Suddenly, a very good smell catches his attention, and he sniffs the air to find its source. He follows the aroma and finds a restaurant, a place that sells something called pork soup. Without even thinking, he goes in and orders the dish, which arrives very hot at his table. He feels annoyed, because if he had known, he wouldn't have gone through all that trouble before. He then picks up the spoon and tastes the soup, and his eyes widen at the delicious flavor. The food was hot and burned his mouth, but he still found it amazing. He can't stop anymore and devours the entire bowl, falling in love with the food. Everything was going well and he was finally happy, but the joy didn't last long. The problem is that the restaurant owner accuses him of eating and trying to leave without paying. The scene returns to the police station where he swears he just forgot the money at home. Then the officer recognizes him and asks if he isn't that hunter from earlier. The officer lets him go since it's his first time and he promises to come back and pay. He asks if he can leave now, but the officer interrupts and asks him to wait a moment. The officer explains that he couldn't find his registration and asks if he awakened recently. He then hands him a flyer for the Awakening Evaluation Center and says it's free. The officer says goodbye with envy, and Gireo doesn't understand what this awakening is. He wonders if this is a concept that everyone on Earth needs to know. With the officer's insistence, he decides to check out the place, which seems to be nearby. The flyer shows a very large building, with the evaluation center's name displayed on the front. Without wasting time, he follows the map on the leaflet and finally arrives in front of the building. But when he looks at the place, he feels something strange, as if he already knew that center. A memory appears in his mind and he remembers that Gireo had been here before. On the evaluation document, he discovers a terrible result. The previous owner was rank F. It finally clicks and he remembers that miserable guy, a rank F awakened. Then he runs into Yeon again, who greets him with a hello. He replies a bit awkwardly, and she asks what he is doing there at the association. The woman takes the opportunity and holds out her hand, asking to see his hunter license. He realizes that he lied, remembering that he promised to get a license that doesn't even exist. But now that he has recovered his memories, he apologizes for what he said before since he was nervous. More calmly, he confesses that he actually doesn't have a hunter license. He explains that he registered, but didn't pick up the card because he didn't like the result. Then, with the document in hand, he reveals the truth, saying that he is rank F. The woman is shocked and asks how a rank F defeated the beginner killer. He shrugs and says that the stupid bird hit its head on the wall by itself. They both fall silent for a moment, with a very strange atmosphere in the air. She thinks it's not impossible, since a monster really could kill itself by accident. But she remembers him at the scene, looking calm as if he had already killed hundreds of monsters. Suspicion hits hard, because those who hide their rank usually have dangerous reasons. A chill runs down her spine, and she starts thinking that maybe he is one of those guys. She forces a smile and agrees that it was luck, since those creatures are kind of dumb. He notices her smile and thinks that he needs to learn human facial expressions. Then he tries to imitate the smile, moving his facial muscles to practice the new tactic. He then gives a bizarre smile and says that he actually had a lot of luck. The woman is startled by his face and thinks that something is definitely wrong with this guy. To get out of there, she makes up an excuse, saying she forgot to give him something, and asks his name. He answers that his name is Gireo, and the woman gets ready to hand him something. She then takes a 50,000 won bill out of her pocket and puts it in his hand. He is amazed, thinking that this is the best cultural custom in the entire universe. The woman explains that he left the monster's body behind, and this is his share of the profit. He calculates that the soup cost 8,000, so with this money he can eat 6 bowls. Surprised, he asks if the feathers are expensive, but she says the creature had a magic stone. He is shocked to learn it was worth 2 million. But his share is only 50,000. She then closes her eyes, preparing to explain why the amount is so low. The woman reveals that she had to pay for all the damage he caused in the city. She also throws it in his face that if someone hadn't run away, he wouldn't have to pay anything. With nothing more to say, she says goodbye and leaves, leaving him behind on the sidewalk. Alone, he grips the bill tightly, still unable to believe he lost 2 million won. He thinks that on his planet, that creature wouldn't be more than an annoying street fly. With a smile, he calculates that 2 million for a bird like that would buy 75 pork soups. To survive and have the happy life he planned on Earth, he will need money. And to have the perfect life he dreams of, he will need much more cash. With an ambitious look, he realizes that the only way is to become a hunter. He remembers that his future had been bleak, since the body's owner was broke and penniless. But now, everything has changed because he finally discovered a way to make money here. Even without being able to use magic right now, he decides that he will hunt for a living. Then he hears someone talking about a gate and wonders what that is. A crowd forms around, with everyone whispering about the mysterious gate. We discover that these are gates, portals that appear randomly in the city. They work as hunting grounds, where Earth's hunters go to fight. Each one is classified according to the density of magical energy it contains, and the higher the gate's class, the more dangerous the monsters inside are. He analyzes the gate and notices that the mana pattern it emits is quite peculiar. He understands that there are monsters inside and thinks it's worth taking a look. But with so many people, he sees that it will be hard to get in and wonders if there is another one nearby. Suddenly, he feels a presence in the air, wondering what the hell that is. A trail of magical energy then appears, winding all around the street near him. He follows the trail through the city and realizes that it leads to another gate nearby. The trail takes him farther away, revealing a gate in the middle of a more remote area. He arrives at the place very tired, complaining that climbing that hill almost killed him. He notices the police tape and finds Earthling's sense of aesthetics very strange. In front of the gate, he wonders why the hell they decorated the plants that way. The scene shows a group of hunters preparing to enter the portal ahead. A man reports on the phone that they have just arrived at the front of the gate. The director asks if there are any civilians nearby, wanting to ensure the area's safety. The hunter replies that there aren't and says that the police are doing a good job isolating it. He complains that the mutation is driving him crazy and that he will investigate right away. After hanging up, he tells his team that it is time to enter the portal. The group of hunters enters the cave, and one of them immediately complains about the musty smell. The leader then checks his meter and confirms that the dungeon seems to be Class D. One member explains that when a gate has problems, it always goes up 2 classes. With a focused look, the leader tells them to finish quickly so they can go get a drink afterward. But the glasses-wearing hunter suggests that they should go more slowly, confusing the team. He justifies his concern, saying they haven't found any monsters yet, which is strange. Then a companion slaps him, asking why rookies are so cowardly. He also reminds them that the team has Yunsung, a powerful rank A hunter, with them. But the cave starts to shake and the hunter feels that something is very wrong. Alone in the dungeon, Gireo begins walking through the very dark stone cave. He finds it strange that he hasn't found any monsters and wonders if he misunderstood what a gate is. Then he notices a trail of bluish mana appearing, and the energy floats around him. With shining eyes, he analyzes the mana, trying to figure out where it is coming from. He notices that the energy is small and crude, but at the same time full of vitality. Following the trail, he wonders if that mana could belong to a nearby human. With that clue, he is sure that someone has been here before, and that he is not alone. Suddenly, an explosion-like sound startles him, making him flinch in surprise. He then hides behind a rock and peeks out to see what is causing the noise. Carefully, he looks down and wonders what the hell that could be. And down below, he sees a giant stone golem, a very frightening monster. The creature's hand is stained with blood, a sign that it has already claimed some victims. We see the golem attacking the hunters, who fight desperately to survive. With a look of pure malice, the creature prepares for another devastating attack. Unfortunately, one of the hunters doesn't make it and falls to the ground, completely bloodied. The other hunters are shocked, unable to believe their friend died in a single blow. The leader then shouts for them to focus, because if they're not careful, they will all die. One of them notices the danger and warns that the monster is right behind Yunsung. The rank A hunter uses his energy shield to defend against the golem's surprise attack. He then charges at the creature and counterattacks with a powerful shield strike. An aura of electric energy begins to flow from the shield, preparing for a final attack. The hunter then leaps and shouts as he uses all his strength in the attack. An explosion of blue light fills the cave, destroying everything around with its impact. Hidden, Gireo watches in awe, thinking the fight is incredible. He takes a deep breath, exhausted after using such a powerful ability. The other hunters are impressed and comment that he truly is a respectable rank A. But one of the hunters notices something and says it can't be right, something is wrong. Yunsung approaches the rubble, but the sound of shifting stone makes him stop immediately. The golem rises again, its eyes glowing, ready for another round. Before he can react, the creature's hand grabs him with tremendous force. The golem slams him into the ground with brutal strength. The hunter coughs up blood from the impact. The golem then hurls him away, sending him flying across the cave. His body crashes hard into the ground, and the monster prepares to attack again. The other hunters scream in despair, unable to believe the creature is still alive. The female hunter remembers scanning the monster before, and the information she saw was different. She reveals in panic that the creature wasn't D rank, but an A rank monster. The team is terrified because it makes no sense for such a strong monster to be in a D-class dungeon. The creature rises again, revealing its full form and preparing to attack. The 2 hunters freeze in fear, unable to react when they see the monster's shadow. The golem clenches its stone fist, preparing for another brutal attack. With a roar of fury, the creature charges at the last remaining hunters, but the leader throws himself in front to protect the team, blocking the blow with his shield. He falls to the ground, badly injured, trembling in pain from the force of the impact. Then the others see an opening and shout that now is the chance to use magic. They know they must bind the creature now or they won't have any chance to escape alive. The leader cries out in despair on the ground, knowing the entire team will be wiped out. The mage panics and doubts that he can restrain a monster that even a rank A couldn't handle. Fallen, the leader begs for trust and asks for just a few seconds to act. But the other hunter has already lost hope, thinking the situation is beyond saving. Angrily, he shouts that he should never have teamed up with an amateur like him. He even blames the leader for their friend's death, leaving him completely shocked. In panic, the hunter curses and decides to run, abandoning the rest of the team. The female hunter stays behind and whispers that she doesn't want to die, not in a place like this. Fallen, he sees his team fleeing, with the mage right behind the other hunter. She can't believe it and wonders if they are really leaving her there to die. The leader is devastated, having trusted his life to them, only to receive this in return. Almost out of strength, he begs them to come back, but it is already too late. With rage, he shouts for them not to run. The golem then stomps down, crushing Yunsung with all its might. Yunsung coughs up blood, dragging himself across the ground after taking so many hits. He thinks that what he feels is not anger, but deep disillusionment with their betrayal. We are told that he became rank A and received many offers from major guilds. He met good people, formed a team, and felt like he was on top of the world. But all of that led to this tragic end, abandoned by his companions. The golem then crushes the mage under its foot, her blood splattering everywhere. At that moment, a sound of stone draws attention, and the creature turns to see what it is. Giryo watches the scene and says that it's really hard to have to witness all of that. He wonders if earthlings are really that fragile, and says that he has already finished his analysis. Seeing the creature up close, he admits that there is no way to doubt its power, even though it is an old model. With a very calm demeanor, he greets the golem, saying it's good to meet it right here. We are told that golems are earth constructs powered by mana. On their home planet, they had many functions, most of them involving manual labor. They did everything from construction and heavy work to simpler everyday tasks. And on top of all that, they were also used as powerful war machines. Golems formed entire armies, being the main combat force of their world. He then reveals that, ironically, his specialty was studying inorganic golems. Because of that, he understands that there are no monsters here, since the golem was guarding the gate. Since they awakened the guard, he realizes he can't simply leave now. He thinks he'll have to deal with the problem, and slides his hand across his chin while making a plan. Even without being able to use magic, the golem prepares to attack with a clenched fist. But with a confident smile, he says there are other ways to handle this. He then charges forward and dodges the golem's first attack. The golem throws a punch toward Giryo, which he barely manages to evade, and it slams into the ground. He sighs in relief, knowing he was too confident and that the fight won't be easy. The creature's size makes its attack slow, which helps him dodge the blows. But the problem is that the body he is using is too weak to endure the fight. Fallen on the ground, he sees the golem raise its fist for a final crushing attack. The creature then prepares to attack the hunter who fled, showing its fury. The golem attacks with all its might, but Giryo manages to dodge in time. After the dust settles, Girogonista sits on the ground, recovering from the shock. He celebrates that the plan worked, and that the golem fell perfectly into his trap. We are told that the gem on the golem's arm is a magical energy sensor. He only needs to input the emergency shutdown command right there on the sensor. We learn that for security reasons, only the owner and the manufacturer know this command. But because it is an old model, he manages to guess the numerical shutdown sequence. With the code entered, a strong white light comes from Giryogonista's hand. The golem begins to shut down, and its red eyes slowly fade into darkness. The creature then collapses heavily to the ground, creating a crater from the impact. But he explains that the emergency shutdown does not completely immobilize it. To fully deactivate it, he needs to reach the core, located in the center of its back. He climbs onto the golem's body and prepares to remove the core with his own hands. Even though he prefers to use tools, he sees that he has no choice but to improvise. With great strength, he lifts the stone plate that protects the monster's core. We finally see the core, an energy sphere glowing with a bluish light. He then reaches out to grab it, and the energy cables begin to spark. With a precise pull, he rips out the core, and the golem shuts down once and for all. Holding the sphere, he says with a smile that the task was very easy to complete. The scene shifts to the fallen hunter, and we see a flashback of his life before everything. His mother appears and says she knows he will become a hunter, but that it is dangerous. He replies with a smile and tells her not to worry because he is rank A. His mother remains worried and warns that even so, a hunter's life is dangerous. She says she will respect his decision, but he interrupts her before she can finish. He then holds her hand, saying that he is now a hunter admired by everyone. With a smile on his face, he promises that she will still see him achieve great success. The young man asks her to trust him, at least this time, which puts his mother at ease. He then says goodbye, telling her that he is about to leave to begin his new journey. She calls out his name one last time, her voice filled with concern. With a gentle smile, his mother asks him to be very careful during his work. The scene returns to the present, with the hunter badly injured and lying on the cave floor. With great difficulty, he tries to stand up, gasping for air with the little strength he has left. Suddenly, his eyes widen in shock as he notices something very strange. He sees the defeated golem and wonders what the hell just happened in the cave. He can't believe that Giryo defeated the creature alone, and on top of that, without weapons. He questions how the man even got inside, and a feeling of terror begins to take over. A terrible thought crosses his mind, and he wonders if Giryo is a hunter-killer. Giryo throws the core onto the ground and starts walking toward the injured hunter. Desperate, Yunsung mutters curses under his breath, breaking out in a cold sweat because he can barely move. With his body covered in blood, he panics as he sees the shadow approaching. Giryogonista finally stops, standing right in front of the fallen man. Giryo then calls out to the hunter, who startles at his voice and shrinks back in fear, but he extends his hand and calmly asks if he needs help. The scene begins by showing the Hunters Association headquarters, a huge and very modern building. Inside, someone gets irritated while reading news about Hunter Yunsung on their phone. We then see Yunsung badly injured, while his agent angrily throws the phone onto the table. The agent stares at him seriously and asks if that was really necessary. But Yunsung explains that another hunter defeated the monster and that he doesn't even know his name. Because of that, the agent shows that no one online has any idea who this mysterious hero is. Yunsung gets angry and slams the table, saying that at least the media focused on the monster. The agent then points to a poster and says he is just trying to protect his career. He continues his lecture, explaining that showing weakness can give enemies an opening. Without beating around the bush, the man asks why he didn't take credit for defeating the golem. Seeing the hunter's silence, the agent clenches his fist and apologizes for the pressure. Yunsung then says he needed to tell the truth, because it was the least he could do for the other man. He continues, saying that the mysterious guy didn't seem like someone who would break the law. He adds that he was a good person, and that he wanted to return the favor. Hearing this, his agent adjusts his glasses and decides to accept his client's decision. The agent then dismisses Yunsung, who simply agrees and leaves the room. As soon as the hunter leaves, the man drops into his armchair to think things over. He reflects on a hunter who defeated a golem that even Yunsung's team couldn't handle. Because of that, the agent becomes extremely curious to meet such a strong and honorable hero. The scene shifts to Girogonista, Giro, who is amazed while fiddling with a cell phone. He stares in awe, thinking Earthlings are simply divine. We are told that he found the device the night before and became addicted to it until morning. He wonders if this is paradise, since he has access to so much information. Lying comfortably, Girogonista enjoys absorbing everything he can about this new world. He discovers that the gate he entered was not private property, but something owned by the government. He also learns that gates have levels, and that Korea strictly controls its hunters. Finally, he understands that the Hunters Association is the one that grants entry permits. With that, he sees a poster of Yunsung and is shocked to learn that he is rank A. Our hero then continues his research while eating some snacks to relax. After seeing the requirements, he concludes that the first thing to do is get his hunter license. An instructor finishes the training, announcing that they will soon hand out the equipment to everyone. Gireo yawns in boredom, thinking the lesson basically boiled down to not messing with monsters. Just then, an officer approaches and hands him a strange device, leaving him confused. He looks at the device, wondering what it is, since it doesn't look like a license. Around him, people start whispering about Giryogonista's confused reaction. The nasty comments continue, with some saying he looks like he's from another planet. Hearing that, he breaks into a cold sweat, wondering if he accidentally gave himself away as an alien. But the officer explains that it's a basic analyzer and that they will teach them how to use it. Then the instructor releases some magical butterflies and asks everyone to test the device on them. Giryo looks up suspiciously, wondering if he should really point the item at the creature. The device beeps and shows on the screen that it is a rank F poisonous fly. Seeing the result, he understands that Earthlings use tools to identify their enemies. Just then, the officer approaches with a smile and explains that the item can also find useful resources. He encourages Gireo to walk around and test the search function in the area, but when he points it at the guard, the device fails, making him conclude that it doesn't work on people. He then tests the device on a plant, which identifies it as a sweet fruit. Excited by the feature, he decides to test it on himself, hoping the item will recognize him. But to his surprise, the analyzer beeps and shows that no data was found. He drops to his knees in frustration, unable to understand why the machine can't recognize him. Suddenly, a light goes on in his mind, and he realizes an important detail. We are told that the device differentiates items based on the presence of magical energy. Although this is a convenient feature, its accuracy is quite low because of this limitation. After all, there are many extremely useful resources that don't have a single trace of energy. He then picks up a handful of dirt, which to ordinary people looks completely ordinary. But in reality, it is a rare mana absorber, an extremely valuable material. Looking around, he realizes that no one there has any idea what that item really is. He finds it all very strange and wonders how no one knows something so basic. At that moment, something clicks in his mind, and he finally begins to understand the situation. He approaches the officer and says he has a question, with the guard ready to answer. With a serious look, he asks when magic, or rather the Awakened, appeared in Korea. The guard answers without hesitation, saying it was 7 years ago, of course. He explains that it was then that the event known as the Dungeon Shock happened, and that was when the Awakened appeared all over the planet at the same time. The alien is stunned, repeating the information about 7 years to himself. He is speechless, since the history of magic in his world spans 60,000 years. He laments that he spent all this time living among primitive humans. He had already found it strange that only electrical engineering was highly advanced there. Primitive magical knowledge paired with incredible technology that defied that logic. He finds this kind of planetary evolution strange, and at the very least, impressive. But in the end, he hides his reaction, turns around, and takes the material from the ground. With a small smile, he concludes that no one will notice if he uses the mana absorbers. We are shown that being a hunter is a job that can make you rich in the blink of an eye. But unlike in fantasy, The life of a low-level hunter is a true hell. On top of that, the body he possessed had a leg problem and couldn't use magic. With his money running out, he needed to find a way to earn cash before starving to death. To start, he gathered a bunch of mana absorbers, but that alone wasn't enough. He discovered that there are monsters on Earth that he can kill with this special item. The problem is that they live in Class C portals, which he cannot enter. Starting a business would also be difficult since he barely knows Earth. Suddenly, a deafening alarm goes off, startling our protagonist who was just chilling. He grabs his phone and sees an emergency notification about a dungeon break nearby. The message told people to evacuate, but he reads it with a very suspicious little smile. He mocks the evacuation order and immediately gets up to run out of the house. With his suit on, he gets ready and feels excited to go observe the monsters. On the street, chaos has already formed, with everyone running and screaming about the dungeon break. He faces the situation head-on, noticing how gigantic the rank B monsters are. In the middle of the crowd, our hero spies on the scene, shocked by the size of the danger. He then stares at the giant creature standing at the top of the tower, causing massive panic. As he tries to pass through, a photographer pushes him hard out of the police line. The guy then complains, saying he barely touched him and that he was blocking the way. With a deadly glare, Gireo stares back at him, asking if he wants to fight. The little guy gets confused by the confrontation, since he was just looking at the man. The photographer boasts, saying he is a hunter and not a civilian waiting to awaken. But our hero stands up and says that he is also a hunter for the same reason. Under pressure, he reveals his secret and admits that he is only a rank F hunter. Hearing this, the photographer cannot hold back and starts laughing right in his face. Gireo becomes indignant, realizing that the guy is laughing at him for being low-ranked. His patience runs out, and a vein pops on his forehead from pure anger. The scene changes and shows helicopters approaching the monster, ready to attack. Soldiers fire at the monster from inside the helicopters, shouting that the creature is heading towards civilians. Because of that, one of the helicopters is struck directly by the monster's tail. The impact causes a massive explosion, destroying the helicopter and hitting the monster hard. As a result, the creature falls from the tower, causing an even bigger second explosion on the ground. At that moment, hunter reinforcements finally arrive at the scene, ready for battle. But the monster recovers and breaks a window, terrifying the civilians inside. It then uses its bizarre tongue to grab one of the people, giving them no chance to defend themselves. The creature pulls its victims out of the building as they scream desperately for help. With a sinister look, the beast stares at the hunters, showing that it will not give up. But suddenly, a mysterious hunter appears and cuts the monster's tongue with a single strike. He manages to save the civilians from falling, but the fight is still not over. Yunsung shouts a warning, saying that the monster is trying to escape beneath the tower. At that moment, an archer prepares, aiming a fire arrow straight at the center of the target. The arrows hit the monster directly, causing multiple fiery explosions across its body. Desperate, the beast rips off its own tail to escape the deadly attack. It then jumps off the tower, managing to flee and leaving only a piece behind. Even injured, the monster lands heavily on the ground, roaring in fury and ready to counterattack. But Yunsung appears, leaping toward the creature with full agility. He then concentrates his energy and releases a brutal electric discharge. With an intensely focused look, the hunter shows that he will not go easy on the enemy. The blow is so powerful that it slams the creature into the ground, destroying everything around it. At that moment, he takes advantage of the opening and leaps forward to finish the fight. He lands a devastating electric punch that explodes right in the giant monster's face. After the attack, the beast finally falls defeated, releasing smoke and no longer moving. Yunsung stands over the enemy's body, and the crowd goes wild with the victory. The photographer from before now joins the fans and even asks our protagonist for an autograph. But Yunsung and his team walk past him, while he reflects on what he learned on the internet. It is explained that rank A hunters are the elite, the idols who protect the city. That is why the crowd goes crazy, pushing Gireo forward to get closer to their hero. Feeling a bit awkward in the middle of the chaos, our protagonist tries to greet the famous hunter. And out of nowhere, Yunsung simply grabs his hand, leaving everyone completely stunned. Super excited, Yunsung says he cannot believe he found him and thanks him for saving his life. A flashback shows the day he was saved, and Gireo confirms that he remembers it. Seeing the scene, our hero finally understands why that hunter seemed so familiar. Then Yunsung turns around and asks if the grumpy photographer was with him. He throws a deadly glare at the guy, who freezes in fear instantly. Seeing the terror, Gireo says that if it were him, he would have already soiled his pants. But Yunsung smiles again and says that fate has brought them together once more, introducing himself formally. He then asks our hero's name, who answers while receiving a business card. A little surprised, Gireo looks at the card while the hunter asks if he is free. With an awkward smile, Yunsung says he has something very urgent to tell him. The scene changes to a park in the late afternoon, with Gireo wanting to know how he plans to make it up to him. Yunsung looks a bit embarrassed, but says that even if he does not want to, he insists. He explains that he felt guilty for disappearing, since the guy saved his life. Our hero then thinks that he only ran away because he was afraid of being caught by the police. But he is not foolish, and he will not refuse an offer from a rank A hunter. Yunsung gets really excited about the opportunity and says that he can ask for anything. With that, Gireo shows a map on his phone with a very specific location pin. He then makes the invitation and asks Yunsung to go with him to that gate. The scene cuts to a dark forest, showing the dangerous environment inside the portal. Walking through it, Yunsung notices his partner's strange expression and asks if something happened. Seeing that he is fine, the hunter hurries and tells them to keep moving, but he keeps glancing sideways because he still cannot believe what is happening there. He keeps thinking about how an amazing hunter like Gireo is not famous. In a quick flashback, Yunsung says he is honored to form a team to collect items, but Gireo corrects him, saying that the plan is to hunt monsters, making Yunsung very excited. With a serious look, our hero says he needs to clear up a misunderstanding with Yunsung. The elite hunter gets confused, having no idea what he is trying to say. Gireo then shows his license, revealing that he is actually a rank F hunter. He adds that he wants the rank A to use him as a simple item carrier. Yunsung is shocked, thinking it is impossible and that the scanner must be broken, but he calms down and says he had already heard some rumors about similar cases. It is explained that some hunters manipulate their rank so they are not controlled by the association. With that, he concludes that this must be the reason Gireo hides his power. Suddenly, our protagonist stops walking and says that he has finally found what he was looking for. The duo comes face to face with a fiery abyss, filled with monstrous and extremely aggressive bats. Yunsung identifies them as fire hammers, a name our hero finds very bizarre. It is revealed that the monster was discovered in Ohio, and that its original name was Firebat. But because of a translation error, it ended up with that strange name, leaving Gireo impressed. At that moment, a loud sound echoes through the area, and both of them turn around in alarm. Out of nowhere, the bats burst out of the pit, flying straight toward them. A massive swarm of fire bats surrounds the duo, creating a dangerous whirlwind. In the middle of the chaos, Yunsung asks Gireo what the bag he is carrying is for. With a sideways glance, he only answers by referring to the item in his hand. The monsters then scream in agony, sensing a strange threat rapidly approaching them. At that moment, our protagonist throws a handful of mana absorbent straight into the middle of the swarm. The mysterious powder extinguishes the creature's flames, making them scream and fall in despair. Seeing the monsters plummeting, he finally explains that this is what the bag was for. Yunsung is left speechless by the scene, while our hero confirms that everything is working. He then takes the chance to ask a question, while Gireo continues hunting the remaining monsters. But Yunsung stops him and asks why he uses items if he could defeat them with his bare hands. Our hero, breaking out in a cold sweat, wonders if he is blind and did not see his rank F license. He then concludes that, as a rank A, he does not understand the life of weak hunters. To change the subject, he asks if Yunsung has ever thought about the nature of awakening. He describes powers as convenient abilities that appeared without any prior effort, and he concludes by saying that they did not work for them, and that everything just happened one day. He clenches his fist and says that this power could disappear at any moment, which makes him very uncomfortable. That is why he explains that he does not trust these awakening abilities he received out of nowhere, but deep down, he is breaking into a cold sweat, because he made it all up and hopes it worked on the hunter. Yunsung is completely at a loss for words, with a tear running down his face from so much emotion. He puts his hand on his forehead and says that he is right, wondering how he never thought about it before. Excited, he adds that the portals are changing, and that items may be the only salvation. With eyes shining in admiration, he praises our protagonist's foresight. Suddenly, he covers his mouth in shock, as if he had discovered an unbelievable secret. He then explains that high-rank hunters, like S ranks, always give off a chilling presence nearby. But with Gireo, he did not feel anything special. At most, the buzz of a fly. The little creature starts foaming with anger at him for calling the great master a simple fly. Yunsung is amazed and concludes that his training is meant to hide his magical energy. Gireo closes his eyes patiently and confirms that rank is just how much mana they can handle. To avoid more trouble, he simply agrees and says that is basically how things work. The scene then changes, with the two of them now eating snacks in a relaxed way after the hunt. Back at home, our protagonist starts counting the money he earned from hunting the bats. He is shocked to see that he only managed to farm a measly 2 million won. The little creature gets annoyed, since that gate should have been packed with monsters, and now it is gone. At the diner, Yunsung asks to be called again, leaving Gireo a bit confused by the proposal. He then explains, saying that he feels he can learn a lot by traveling with our hero. Gireo just listens, while Yunsung says that it is dangerous to work alone without experience. It is explained that he has not gotten over the betrayal he suffered from his former teammates, so Gireo accepts the help, but warns him not to expect to be saved if the worst happens. He continues, saying that everyone is responsible for themselves, and that he is too weak to protect him. But Yunsung misunderstands everything, and thinks the guy is being humble and caring about him. As he he leaves a gift on the table and suddenly asks Gireo how old he is. Our hero is surprised by the question, and Yunsung confirms that he wants to know his age. The hunter says he is 22 and starts chatting non-stop about his life. But in the middle of the conversation, he stops and realizes he has no idea how old Gireo is. Our hero then remembers something and suggests that they exchange phone numbers. Yunsung checks his ID to take a look and discovers that Gireo is 24 years old. He is left speechless, shocked that they are only 2 years apart in age. Seeing his reaction, the hunter rushes to explain, saying that he seems much more mature. But our hero gets lost in thought because he does not remember going to college. It is shown that his contact list on his phone is also completely empty, with no one in it. He then starts wondering about the past of the body he is using now, and he reflects on what kind of lonely life the real Gireo lived before him. The scene then cuts to a blue-haired man watching the news about mutations in the portals. The report continues, explaining that not even the best experts have been able to find the cause of the phenomenon. Seeing the news, the mysterious man becomes thoughtful, with a very curious expression about the situation. Our hero is eating when he receives a call from Yunsung with an awesome invitation for tomorrow. He accepts right away, since the little creature gets excited about an earthling wanting to show something cool. It is explained that the association always investigates new portals before opening them to the public. He becomes hopeful, because new plants were found and could be the key to his magic. His plan was just to check the plants at the entrance of the gate and then leave. Arriving at the location, he and Yunsung see a crowd of people gathered around the blue portal. Yunsung warns that most of them are just journalists, but that it is much more crowded than usual. Suddenly, the sound of a super-fast sports car draws everyone's attention. Our protagonist turns around in confusion, curious about the unexpected arrival of that flashy car. The vehicle brakes sharply, screeching its tires and stopping right in front of the crowd. A stylish, purple-haired guy steps out, making people start to gossip. The crowd recognizes the famous Chungho and starts wondering what he is doing there. Seeing the scene, Yunsung is shocked and says that he is Chungho, a rank S hunter. To give an idea, it is revealed that there are only 3 hunters of that level in Korea. Gireo observes him and notices that his energy is stable, a very rare talent on Earth. The powerful Chungho then turns around, and his reflection looks directly at our protagonist. Yunsung whispers that his eyes are unique, known as dragon eyes. At that moment, the rank S hunter starts walking toward them, leaving Yunsung terrified. He then taps Gireo on the shoulder and suddenly asks what his name is. Impatiently, the man repeats the question, and our hero replies that his name is Gireo. Yunsung tries to interfere and asks what the problem is with his assistant, but with an icy look, Chungho cuts him off, saying that he was not talking to him. He then asks Gireo's rank, and he answers bluntly that he is just a simple rank F. With a mocking smile, the hunter crosses his arms, completely doubting that answer. Our hero becomes tense, wondering if he sensed his inner magical energy. It is explained that the lungs are like an output organ for the body's mana, and even if the respiratory system fails, the total mana does not decrease, a sign Chungho would notice. To maintain the disguise, Gireo challenges him, asking if he wants to see his hunter license. Chungho smiles, impressed by the courage of that supposed rank F staring him down. Desperate, Yunsung grabs his arm, shouting that they need to go so they will not be late. Yunsung pushes Gireo away, making up an excuse that they were just taking a look and were already late. While being dragged away, our hero takes one last look back and sees the powerful Chungho standing there calmly. Already far away, Yunsung asks if he does not know the guy, and Gireo brushes it off, saying he lived abroad. He then starts gossiping, warning that that hunter does not have the best reputation. It is revealed that Chungho has a history of violence, and that nobody wants to enter a gate with him. Gireo asks what happened, and Yunsung says that his cousin is 3rd among the rank A hunters. He explains that she entered a gate with Chungho and was attacked, because he loves picking fights. Our hero is moved, understanding that Yunsung pulled him away because he was worried about him. He then suggests that they go back for today and check out the plant another day. But suddenly, an idea appears in Gireo's mind, and he gets a very thoughtful look. He stops Yunsung and asks about the dragon eyes he mentioned earlier. Then he asks if those items can be bought and sold, just like his shield. Yunsung confirms it and says that the item looked like a marble when it was first found. Gireo comments that he does not see lungs for sale, and Yunsung shows him why on his phone. He explains that lungs do not increase magical energy, and that is why almost no one looks for them. Yunsung reveals that the item's price is 2,600,000,000 won. Gireo puts on a gloomy expression, while Yunsung is shocked for thinking the price is super cheap. With a tear running down his face, he laments and thinks it would have been better if he had never heard that. The scene cuts to our hero inside a taxi, searching for information about the hunter Chungho on his phone. He becomes tense because the more he learns about the guy, the scarier he seems. Because of that, he regrets having confronted the man and fears that he might come after him. Suddenly, Chungho's red car appears at high speed, right on the taxi's tail. Without mercy, the sports car crashes into the taxi, creating a deafening collision. The impact throws our protagonist forward, leaving him stunned by the surprise attack. Then the taxi driver crashes as well, and the car comes to a complete stop. The driver pants in shock and turns around to see if his passenger is okay. Still shaken, Gireo adjusts himself in the seat and confirms that yes, he survived the accident. The taxi driver then gets out of the car furiously, shouting and cursing at the crazy driver in the other car. But someone calmly steps out and apologizes for what happened, making the atmosphere tense. With a cynical smile, Chungho leans on his car and says he mixed up the accelerator and the brake. Our protagonist gets out of the taxi and is shocked to see that the driver was the rank S hunter. The man approaches him mockingly and asks for his phone number to settle the damages. The taxi driver trembles in fear, but gathers the courage to ask for the repair money. Without even caring, Chungho hands the driver a stack of cash, leaving him speechless. The man then bows and thanks him, completely shocked by the amount he just received. But Chungho insists on getting Gireo's number, saying he needs to pay his hospital bills. Our hero does not understand the excuse, but decides to give his number to get it over with. With the contact saved, the rich man introduces himself formally, with a very mysterious look. It is explained that he was a spoiled heir, and had been arrested for assault even before awakening. The internet was filled with rumors about him, but the biggest scandal was the death of his parents. After the accident, Chungho sold the entire family company without thinking twice. Because of that, rumors emerged that he killed his own parents just to get the money. Back in the present, Chungho praises him, saying it is a waste for him to be an assistant. He then steps closer and says he knows a much more profitable job for someone like him. With an intimidating look, Chungho asks if he is interested in the proposal. Chungho leans against the car and offers a much more profitable job to our hero. The little creature gets excited about the money and Gireo tells him to send the proposal. He then offers 80% of the profits if he leaves Yunsung to work for him. Gireo is shocked, unable to believe he is trying to recruit him with such good terms. He concludes that the rank S recognized his potential and that his energy is equal or greater. With that, the little creature gets excited, dreaming of dominating the planet with his recovered power. But Gireo makes an excuse, saying that he cannot enter rank S portals for now. He then confronts him, asking if he did not approach him because he recognized his true power. Chungho is confused by the question and reminds him that he is just a rank F hunter. Our hero then understands that it was just a sponsorship offer, and the little creature dies of embarrassment. The hunter then pressures him and asks whether he will accept the offer or not. But Gireo interrupts and asks what he sees as so special to make this proposal. With a sinister smile, the man only replies, "Who knows?" leaving an air of mystery. The scene changes with Yunsung shocked to learn about the car accident that happened to him. Gireo explains that he used him as an excuse to escape and now thinks the accident was intentional. Yunsung concludes that the rumor is true and that thanks to Gireo, he avoided a fight. He gets very excited and the little creature panics, wondering if he should call the police. But our hero imagines the ridiculous scene of trying to report a guy for offering protection. Seeing that it would be useless, he decides to forget about it, and Yunsung changes the subject to relax. The hunter comments that Korea ranked second in portal management. He continues, saying that the news reports that humanity will soon overcome the catastrophe. With that, Gireo becomes interested, since the concept of portals is still a mystery to him. It is shown that this phenomenon appeared all over the world 7 years ago, bringing monsters with it. And it was from that event that humans known as the Awakened also appeared. Our hero theorizes that magic comes from core mana, but that it is difficult to extract on Earth. He concludes that portals function like wells, and that exposure to mana created the Awakened. But he finds it strange that portals, besides drawing in mana, also come with hostile monsters. With so many unanswered questions, he becomes confused, trying to understand the logic of everything. At that moment, Yunsung snaps him out of his trance and asks if he is okay, worried about his friend. He then says he was imagining being the creator of the portals, and that he would not be happy. He uses a metaphor saying that the monsters try to kill us, and the items are the bait. But if the rats learn how to disarm the trap, they can steal the cheese in the end. With that, the creator of the plan would be very irritated by their success. Suddenly, a tremor begins, and a bluish energy rises from the ground, frightening the duo. Gireo feels the power boiling under his feet, like lava about to erupt. Yunsung asks what is happening, as the aura begins to completely surround him. Our hero then realizes in panic that it is an absurd amount of magical energy. He shouts Yunsung's name, but he is swallowed by a tornado of power and disappears. The hunter is completely frozen, unable to believe what just happened in front of him. Desperate, he shouts Gireo's name, who has completely vanished in the middle of the street. The scene shows our hero being sucked in by the power, with his clothes tearing apart. After the flash of light, he opens his eyes and finds himself in a completely different place. He then gets up and finds himself alone in a strange white corridor. Not understanding anything, he wonders if that is really a portal or something else. Seeing that there is nowhere to run, he decides to walk so he does not run into a monster. He walks down the corridor, wondering how he will get out without even being able to use fire magic. But suddenly he stops, because he notices something strange further ahead in the white corridor. The scene shows that he has found some strange tombstones, wondering what kind of place this is. Getting closer, He sees that it is a gravestone and that there seems to be something written on it. He then walks toward the stones, but notices that someone else is approaching him. To his surprise, it is Chungho, who calls him by name, making the atmosphere very strange. At that moment, another mysterious man appears out of nowhere, and our hero does not understand who he is. The three of them stare at each other in a dead end, leaving our protagonist completely lost in the situation. Chungho then greets the man, whose name is Hassang, and our hero notices that they are not close. He then asks if the two of them know each other, and the atmosphere becomes extremely tense with their looks. Chungho is shocked that he does not know Hassang, but Gireo thinks he barely arrived on Earth. With that, Chungho mocks Hassang, and our hero becomes curious about who he is. It is revealed that he is Jung Hassang, Korea's #1 hunter, leaving Gireo impressed. Chungho then introduces him as a rank F, and Korea's hero greets him coldly. He then becomes a bit tense, realizing that the hunter stared at him for quite a while. Hassang breaks the ice and asks if they were also transported here out of nowhere. At that moment, he activates a stylish analyzer, making our hero curious about its design. The device then reveals that they are in an unidentified portal of a so-called extra class. Gireo takes out his phone to search, but becomes completely lost, not knowing what that is. To make things worse, the phone screen starts glitching with very strange interference. Chungho then warns that the interference will break their phones and points at the gravestone. The writing says that the symbol of true faith will be the key, a possible clue from there. Seeing this, the three of them turn toward a stone door, the only possible path. Without wasting time, Hassang steps forward and tries to push the door with all his strength. He realizes it is useless and asks Chungho for help, who only mocks him. The hunter then admits that he is not strong enough to open the door by himself. With a bored sigh, Chungho decides to help, since he sees that there is no other choice. He then steps forward and takes position, ready to push the door together with him. The two exchange a quick look and agree to push the door at the same time. Hassang releases all his fiery power into his hand. Seeing that, Chungho prepares himself, releasing a greenish aura of power. He then fires a massive energy blast that slams into the stone door. Gireo is shocked, as it is explained that rank S spellcasters are truly special. They are among the few who received extraordinary talent with almost monstrous abilities. But even with all that power, the giant door does not move at all and remains closed. Because of that, Chungho concludes that it is safe to say they will not open it by force. Our hero then turns and says that there is only one other thing they can try. He then looks at the lion statue, finally understanding what the inscription meant. Chungho steps closer to take a look and notices that the statue's mouth is wide open. With a mischievous smile, he asks if they do not think an arm would fit in there. Chungho points at the statue and comments that the hole looks perfect for someone's arm. Hearing the suggestion, Gireo turns pale, shocked by the crazy idea. He starts panicking, saying that if the door does not open, they will starve to death there. But Jung Hassang ignores the drama and simply walks toward the lion statue. Without thinking twice, he thrusts his own arm straight into the statue's mouth. The stone creaks and trembles slightly, while the other two watch the scene in confusion. Suddenly, a huge portal opens in front of them, with a bright light pouring out. Seeing Jung Hassang looking strange, Gireo asks if something happened to him. At that moment, the hunter shows his bleeding arm and explains that the statue sucked his blood. He says he tried to pull it out, but it was stuck so tightly that it felt like it would be ripped off. Chungho does not even care about the sacrifice and already turns around, telling them to go in quickly. Gireo gets a bad feeling and hopes he will not regret entering that place. The trio then walks through an endless white corridor, not knowing what awaits them ahead. But Chungho suddenly stops and complains angrily that he cannot believe this. There is another lion statue, identical to the first one, blocking the path again. Jung Hassang warns that there is no time to waste and prepares to solve the problem. With the statue's eyes glowing, he sticks his arm in again, saying they need to get out of there. The door opens once more and he simply calls the others to keep going. But as soon as he steps into the next room, he lets out a sigh, already imagining what comes next. Chungho becomes indignant and shouts when they find yet another identical lion statue. Gireo grows tense, wondering if they will have to keep repeating this sacrifice. Jung Hassang then turns and asks Chungho to be the next one to open the door. He explains that the second time he already felt dizzy, because the statue is demanding more blood, but Chungho only mocks him and says that since he is doing well, he can keep going. The hunter becomes furious at the answer and grits his teeth at such selfishness. With a serious look, he says that Chungho is deliberately getting in the way of his strategy. The blue-haired man gives a sideways smile and asks if he has forgotten his hunter rank. Jung Hassang has had enough and draws his sword, telling him to cooperate once and for all. But Chungho crosses his arms and asks what will happen if he simply refuses. Seeing the argument, Gireo tries to calm them down, saying they need to share the burden fairly. Chungho gives a small smile and adds that there is still one more detail. He points behind them and says that since there is another hunter there, they could just ask him. Gireo suddenly realizes it and remembers that survival in these dungeons is very low. It is explained that the only way to move forward is by offering blood for the labyrinth to continue. He then understands everything and realizes that he is the offering meant to solve the problem. But Jung Hassang stares at him coldly, and questions the logic of pushing everything onto a rank F. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps echoes through the corridor, frightening everyone. A gigantic shadowy paw slams into the ground right in front of the group. From the floor, a wolf made of shadows with ice claws materializes, growling. Giryo panics and shouts, saying he thought there were no monsters here. Without wasting time, the beast roars loudly and leaps straight at him. He curls up in fear, waiting for the impact that would surely be his end. But in the blink of an eye, Hassang appears in front of him, wrapped in flames. With a swift motion, he cuts the shadow wolf in half with his sword. The hunter then lands on the ground as the monster explodes into ashes behind him. Giryo stands there with his mouth open, wondering if this is the magic of a primitive sorcerer. At that, Chungho comments that he was pretty fast, even after losing blood. Giryo's expression turns to pure panic when he realizes the danger is not over yet. Another shadow wolf appears out of nowhere, mouth wide open and ready to bite anything in sight. The creature slams its paws into the ground, showing itself to be much bigger and stronger than the previous one. Desperate, Giryo shouts to warn that the monster appeared right behind Chungho, but he turns around with a calm look, and his fist shines with a strong greenish light. With a single punch, he destroys the beast's head in an explosion of energy. Giryo is amazed and wonders if his power is some kind of body reinforcement. Chungho then comments that the monster was soft and must have been just rank C. But Hassang cuts in and says that it is still too early to let their guard down. From the corridor walls, several images of wolves begin to form and come to life. The creatures leap from the walls, becoming real shadow monsters with sharp claws. In seconds, the group is surrounded by an entire pack of wolves, all growling at them. With no chance to escape, the three prepare to fight as the horde charges at them. Hassang says it will be annoying to deal with so many and asks Chungho to cover his back. But Chungho just gives a small smile and tells him to worry about himself. The entire pack then gathers and surrounds the two hunters to attack at once. At that moment, Hassang gathers momentum, and his sword bursts into intense flames once again. Chungho does not fall behind and blows off a wolf's head with his energy punch. Meanwhile, the swordsman cuts another monster in half with a precise fiery strike. The other wolves keep barking non-stop, trying to create an opening in the hunter's defense. Seeing that there are too many, Chungho concentrates a large amount of energy in his hand. He then throws a powerful punch that sends several enemies flying. Even so, more and more wolves keep rushing toward them without stopping. Hassang prepares himself again, and his sword shines with even stronger heat. With absurd speed, he delivers dozens of slashes, creating a barrier of fire. Watching everything from afar, Giryo swallows hard, completely shocked by the scene. He is left speechless at the unbelievable firepower of just two rank S fighters. Hassang realizes that the blood loss is already taking a toll on his stamina. He looks at the lion statue and realizes he will not be able to keep fighting much longer. At that moment, the statue roars loudly and its eyes glow with a terrifying evil energy. And to make things worse, a gigantic shadow wolf appears, making it clear that it is the pack's leader. But even exhausted, he uses the rest of his strength and attacks the beast with a flaming slash. And in the middle of that chaos, he finally understands what is happening, grasping the secret of the place. Chungho complains irritably, saying that there is an entire swarm of monsters there. Even while sweating, Giryo is amazed, thinking that this is the power of a rank S. In the blink of an eye, they simply slaughter all the wolves in their way. He then realizes that conquering Earth will be difficult, and calls the others over to talk. At that, he points ahead and asks them to look at something very strange. Suddenly, the lion statue's eyes begin to glow with a red light. Hassang explains that if they do not give blood in time, a wave of monsters will appear. Right at that moment, a ghost wolf sneaks up behind him, ready to attack. Seeing the danger, Giryo shouts his name, warning that the creature is about to strike. But the hunter turns instantly, with his sword already glowing in flames again. With a precise movement, he thrusts the flaming blade straight into the creature's mouth. He then throws the monster's body aside, where it crumbles into ashes on the ground. Chungho understands the logic and asks if that means they have a time limit. To prove the theory, the pack leader appears again, running straight toward them. The beast then leaps at Giryo, who freezes in fear on the ground. Seeing the danger, Hassang shouts and charges with his flaming sword to save his companion. Chungho also wastes no time and, with a focused gaze, rushes in to help with the fight. The scene widens, showing the two rank S fighters battling alone against the horde of wolves. He understands the situation and quickly places his arm into the lion statue. The creatures then dissolve into smoke, and he turns with a problem-solved look. At that, the shadows of all the defeated wolves begin to rise and vanish into the air. In seconds, the hall is clean again, with only Chungho standing beside the statue. He then turns and suggests that he and Hassang take turns opening the next doors. Hassang explains that a rank F would not endure it, leaving Giryo surprised and grateful. He thinks about how the hunter protected him and now feels indebted to the people's hero. With the room finally at peace, the three resume walking through the white silent corridor. But the blood loss begins to weigh on him, and Hassang grows dizzy and short of breath. He stumbles, but Giryo supports him immediately, asking worriedly if he is okay. Even pale, he says he is fine, and that portals like this are usually small. Gireo feels relieved, thinking it is the other's turn, but Chungho stops and calls out to Jung. He turns and suggests a break, saying that they have both reached their physical limit. His idea is to go back and look for clues, but Jung accuses him of just trying to buy time. Even dizzy, he says that the strategy is to follow the rules and that Chungho should already know that. At that, he accuses him of wanting to summon monsters to get rid of him, just like he did with someone named Jin. Chungho falls silent, and with a small smile tells him to be straightforward and open the door. Jung then steps back and says that he has never refused to help clear the portal. Chungho walks up to the statue and explains that the Jin incident was just an accident. He admits that he is a former criminal, so he understands the other's distrust. With a mocking tone, he says that Jung is being overly cautious with him, and that is why he is making rushed decisions out of desperation to get out. He says he will open the door, but asks Jung to reconsider his proposal to go back. Watching the scene, Gireo realizes that Chungho might be more reasonable than he seemed. Chungho then puts his arm into the statue and groans in pain as the stone tightens. When he pulls his arm out, it is badly deformed, and Jung asks if he is okay. He tells him not to worry, because he has a potion that will let him open 2 more doors. Chungho then suggests that they keep going, and that if they do not find the exit, they will look for another way. Watching the scene, Gireo thinks that maybe he needs to help a little and pulls out a purple item. Out of nowhere, he raises the object to strike from behind and smashes the potion over Hassang's head, knocking him unconscious. Chungho comments that the item works even on rank S, and Gireo shouts that he had called that thing a potion. He asks what is going on, but Chungho calls him by name in a serious tone. Then he asks if he has ever heard of the Iron Maiden Gate. He explains that this dungeon is the same, and that one hunter needs to be sacrificed to escape. Gireo is shocked by the idea, and realizes that the plan is to sacrifice Jung Hassang. Chungho gives a sideways smile and says that the chance of dying is high, so it is better to make sure. Gireo thinks for a moment, and concludes that if a sacrifice is needed, he has no right to choose. Determined, he accepts the plan, and Chungho immediately starts dragging Jung's body along. But he remembers how he was protected, and even agreeing, he feels that something is wrong. When it is time to use Jung's hand, Gireo stops him and asks him to wait a moment. He offers to open the door himself, but Chungho scoffs and asks if he has a guilty conscience. With a serious look, Gireo promises to get him out alive, even knowing there is no room for negotiation. He keeps thinking of a way to save Jung, while Chungho says the trial is already ending. Out of nowhere, a portal of light opens in front of them, leaving both completely stunned. The scene reveals that the so-called door was actually the exit of that endless white corridor. They are both confused and wonder if that really is the portal's exit. Chungho starts freaking out, saying that the dungeon's statistics did not make sense. In the middle of the final room, a statue of a woman holds a golden item that shines brightly. He then realizes that he attacked Jung for nothing, thinking sacrifice was the only way out. Worried about the trouble this will cause, he points to the statue and says that is the reward. Gireo then approaches the statue and takes the golden object from its stone hands. He looks at the item and wonders if that strange bracelet is some kind of magical artifact. He suggests using the item as an apology, but Chungho knows the trouble is much bigger than that. Already awake, Jung laments that everything would have been easier if he had been the sacrifice. Chungho then suggests that since they are still inside the portal, it might be better to finish the job. With a sinister smile, he thinks that the body would disappear, and that the only problem would be the witness. He starts walking toward Gireo, who immediately realizes that he is also going to be a target. But Chungho pretends to be offended and says he would not do that, but that he has a request. With a frightening look, he asks Gireo to testify that he was the one who knocked out Jung Hassang. The scene changes, and it is explained why Chungho's eyes are so sharp, thanks to a rare item he got from a green dragon, the dragon eyes. It is said that these special eyes have many different and very powerful functions, such as amplifying magical energy and helping him see objects from very far away, as well as being able to measure anyone's power level at a glance. With power like that, he never needed to strain his eyes to see anything, at least until now. He analyzes Gireo and notices a strange energy that might be the most desired skill in the world. We go back to the past and see Chungho asking our protagonist's name. After he answers, Chungho asks what his hunter rank is, and Gireo says he is rank F. But Chungho does not believe it and thinks it is impossible for a rank F to look at him like that. To a weak hunter, a high rank one is like a predator, like a tiger staring at a rabbit. Even Chungho himself had trouble just going to a bakery because of his aura. That is why he knew the rank F story was a lie, and decided to provoke him a little. He tried everything, even causing a traffic accident to see his reaction. But no matter what he did, Gireo kept the same blank expression. It is explained that he actually liked Gireo's attitude, since he did not treat him like a rank S. That is why he assures that he is not doing this out of anger and repeats his request to Gireo. He explains that even if Jung remembers, The testimony of the two of them will carry more weight. Then he grabs him by the shoulder and says that Gireo only needs to say one thing. The story would be that there was a fight in the dungeon and he just calmed Hassang down. But Gireo asks what will happen if he refuses, and Chungho says he will not go down alone. With a sinister look, he warns that he could very well solve the problem by himself. He is just curious to know what ability Gireo is hiding from others. He expected a reaction, but Gireo simply agrees, leaving Chungho quite surprised. Gireo asks if he only has to say that he knocked Jong out, and Chungho does not understand the cooperation. He realizes that there is no fear on Gireo's face, and that he is not giving in because of the threat. So he wonders if, in truth, Gireo just wants to avoid a bigger conflict. He remembers that Gireo said he could not enter rank S portals for now. That makes him think that maybe he is a high-level awakened who hid his power. That situation must be frustrating for him. And that is why Chungho cannot read what kind of awakened he is. Chungho restrains himself from provoking him further, and says that Gireo made the right choice after all. He then turns around and says it is finally time to get out of that cursed dungeon. Gireo feels tense about the deal, and his slime already starts lamenting the trouble he got into. But at least he survived, and now he walks toward the blue light of the exit portal. He finally steps out and breathes in fresh air, shielding his eyes from the strong sunlight. Suddenly, he bends over and realizes that there is something very strange outside. A crowd of reporters and police officers is there, shouting that a hunter came out of the third exit. He is confused by the scene and wonders why there are so many people standing there. The reporters rush in, firing off many questions about the dungeon. One of them steps closer and bluntly asks how many hunters entered the portal with him. Gireo still has not processed it and wonders what this story about portals is. Looking at the street, he realizes that all the portal exits are actually there, side by side. Then one of the cameramen shouts and points at something that appeared right behind him. It is Chungho, coming out of another portal while carrying the unconscious Jong Hassang. The crowd is shocked, and a reporter asks what everyone is wondering. Why is he unconscious? Chungho steps out of the portal, carrying the still unconscious Jong Hassang on his back. Then a woman from the association approaches and asks him to explain the situation quickly. She gets straight to the point and wants to know why Korea's #1 hunter is unconscious. He then says that there was a serious fight about who should be the next sacrifice, and shamelessly he points at Gireo and says that he was the one who knocked Jeong out. Gireo is outraged, unable to believe that he is lying like that the moment he stepped outside. The association woman explodes in anger and shouts that it is impossible for some random hunter to do that. She turns to Chungho and tells him to stop fooling around and tell the truth. Then she accuses him directly, asking if he was not actually the one who attacked Jong. But Chungho only gives a sideways smile, with a look that is not good at all. With a threatening gaze, he stares at Gireo and tells him to stop hesitating and say something. Seeing that there is nowhere to run, Gireo sighs, already knowing what he has to do. He then turns to the woman and with a serious voice begins to explain what happened. To everyone's surprise, he confirms the story and says it is true. He was the one who knocked Jong out. The confession leaves everyone shocked, while Chungho gives a victorious smile. He tries to explain himself, saying he only did it to make conquering the portal easier. The association woman doubts it, but Chungho jumps in, denying that he did anything. Suddenly, he starts to break into a cold sweat and feels dizzy, as if he is about to pass out. Chungho then almost faints because of the blood he lost. Out of breath, he asks if she cannot see that he is in no condition to have started a fight. The association agent stares at him and, for a second, almost believes his acting. But Gireo immediately realizes that Chungho lost blood and is just pretending. In the middle of the crowd, a reporter shouts excitedly at the possibility of the story being true. Then the entire press surrounds Gireo, with flashes and microphones everywhere. Everyone asks for a statement, and he stands there thinking about what to answer. With little choice, he takes a deep breath and nods, confirming that the story is real. The scene changes, and we see Hassang reading a newspaper with the news that has spread everywhere. Furious, he crumples the paper in anger and whispers that Gireo will pay for this. At a restaurant, Yunsung tells Gireo that he saw the news about the incident before it was deleted. He then asks if it is true that Gireo was the one who knocked out the famous hunter Jong Hassang. Gireo realizes that his friend only invited him to eat so he could gossip about it. Not making a big deal out of it, he confirms that it was basically what happened, leaving Yunsung shocked. But his friend soon changes the subject and thanks him for pushing him away from the portal. Suddenly, Gireo's phone starts vibrating on the table, interrupting their conversation. Seeing that it is a private number, he excuses himself and decides to answer. He picks up the phone, and on the other side, a voice asks if this is Mr. Gim's number. The person introduces himself as Hassang, and Gireo freezes, almost dropping his food. The hunter explains that he forgot to get his number and wanted to apologize in person. Gireo feels awkward, but Hassang says he actually called to ask about yesterday. The scene changes to the hospital, and we see the hunter from behind, talking about what happened in the portal. He asks directly if it was really Gireo who knocked him out with a strange tone. Hassang admits that he passed out suddenly, and has no memory of what happened. He suspects that Chungho attacked him, but since he does not remember, he is not sure. Gireo recalls Hassang's question and starts thinking about what to answer. With the question hanging in the air, he realizes he is in a very complicated situation. Hassang's memory is completely messed up, and the news is only making things worse. He thinks about blaming Chungho, but hesitates, unsure if he can trust the people's hero. It is explained that Hassang is not a hero because he is fair, but because he closes many portals. In other words, he is a workaholic who would not care about protecting a rank F. On top of that, Gireo is not even sure if Hassang could beat Chungho in a fight. Seeing no way out, he takes the blame and confirms that he was the one who knocked Jong out. He makes up that Jong was pushing himself too hard, and that the plan was for him to be the sacrifice. As an apology, he offers the portal's reward. But Hassang is offended by the proposal. A woman enters the room while Hassang calls him pathetic for trying to solve everything with an item. The hunter accuses him, saying that the real plan was to knock him out and use him as a sacrifice. Then he grows suspicious and asks if he and Chungho had already agreed on this from the beginning. Gireo is left speechless and can only say that he had his reasons for doing it. But Hassang does not want to hear anything else and hangs up, saying he will not waste any more time. Before hanging up, he warns that he will be keeping an eye on Gireo, leaving Gireo worried. Desperate, Gireo tries to call Jong back, but the hunter has already hung up on him. Back at the hospital, Jong apologizes to the woman and says the call took longer than he expected. She then hands him the documents he asked for, with the news about the incident with Chungho. He starts flipping through the papers, and the woman says the guild has already taken everything down. Then he reads some comments online, with people mocking him for getting knocked out. The woman tells him not to worry, but he replies that the story has already spread. She looks sad and comments that now the world knows rank S hunters are not invincible. He then says that all of this is Chungho's fault, and that people must be worried. The woman informs him that according to the records, that Hunter really is a rank F. Jong doubts it, and says that if he were really just a rank F, Chungho would have killed him already. He does not understand why Chungho would bother threatening a rank F. Above all, he remembers Gireo's gaze, cold and completely lifeless. He concludes that the guy is not normal, and that he has never felt like that around anyone before. Because of that, he tells the woman to contact the association, since there is a chance his level was manipulated. Determined, Jong says he will request a new verification of Gireo's awakened rank. The scene changes, and it is explained what skills are. The supernatural powers of the awakened. Everyone who awakens gains at least one skill, but magic on this planet is still very limited. For example, Hassang, who uses fire, could never use ice powers no matter how hard he tried. But Gireo's situation is different, because he reincarnated and already knows everything about sorcery. The problem is that, for now, he cannot use all that potential he has stored. Meanwhile, he becomes the center of attention and starts getting mocked all over the internet. Because of that, he desperately researches and discovers something called a magic energy amplifier. His body has bad lungs, so he can only use a tiny bit of energy, and the portal with the ingredients he needs is located inside the Korea Magic Tower building. But a receptionist stops him at the entrance, saying he cannot just walk in. The man mocks him and does not believe that some random rank F managed to book an appointment. He tries to kick Gireo out, and Gireo realizes he will not be able to get in at all, but suddenly a voice calls his name, surprising the employee. It is Yunsung, who comes running and apologizes for being late to meet his friend. The receptionist is stunned when he sees the famous hunter An Yunsung with Gireo. He immediately changes his attitude and starts fangirling over Yunsung, saying he is a big fan. Then he asks what Yunsung came to do, while Gireo is ignored at the side. Yunsung says he has an appointment, and the receptionist immediately invites them both inside. He even apologizes to Gireo, saying that the rules forbid rank F hunters from entering. With their passage cleared, they finally step inside the country's famous magic tower. Gireo is impressed when he sees the entrance of such a fancy and important place. It is explained that the Korea Magic Tower is one of the largest hunter guilds. At the reception desk, Yunsung introduces himself and says he scheduled a meeting with the CEO. The woman hands them a visitor card and says the office is on the top floor. She points to the elevator and tells them to go up alone, which makes Gireo suspicious. Even so, he says nothing and follows his friend toward the elevator. The elevator panel shows floor 60 and the metal door is finally open. As soon as they step out, both of them are shocked by the scene in the CEO's office. Seeing his friend's reaction, Gireo calls his name, trying to understand what is going on. Sitting there, a mysterious woman stares at them and wonders if he forgot something. Gireo calls out to Yunsung, who is sweating cold, not understanding what's happening. He looks out the window and wonders if he's missing something important. Then Yunsung explains that even though they pressed floor 60, they aren't actually that high. He says that they are actually being tested, leaving Jiryo even more confused. His friend explains that the CEO here is one of Korea's 3 rank S hunters and has a strange reputation. Apparently, she always puts visitors in mazes she creates herself for fun. Jiryo concludes that they'll have to climb on their own and suggests using the stairs. He carefully opens the door, but is startled by what he finds on the other side. The stairs actually lead to the parking lot, and Yunsung says the doors change places. Jiryo then decides to go back to the 2nd floor, and his friend agrees immediately. While climbing, Jiryo asks if anyone has ever passed this test, but his friend doesn't know. He thinks there must be a way, but only a few selected employees know the right path. He also finds it strange that they expect them to solve everything without using expensive items. Yunsung complains about the CEO's hobby, saying it's cruel to mess with them like this. But Jiryo admires the maze and says the power makes him eager to meet the sorceress. He looks at the trail of magic on the ground and says that a magical labyrinth makes him feel at home. Yunsung suggests splitting up to find the way, but Jiryo tells him not to worry about that. He leans against the wall and thinks that even though he's weaker, he still has some tricks left. Then he starts concentrating to analyze the place, while Yunsung just watches. With his hand glowing with energy, he says he found what he was looking for since the magic was very simple. His friend is amazed and asks how he found the exit so quickly. Jiryo then asks his friend a strange question about how to empty the inside of an elevator. He explains that the elevator is just a box on a vertical path, confusing Yunsung even more. Then Jiryo tells his friend to wait a bit while he prepares his plan. He explains that the first step is simple. All they need to do is call the elevator. The second step is to get in and press the top floor button like normal. And the third step is to jump out quickly before the doors close, telling his friend to step back. With the doors almost closed, he kicks the elevator with all his strength. The kicks crush the metal doors, and Yunsung can't believe how strong he is. The kick opens a hidden passage, revealing the true path upward. Yunsung doesn't understand anything and asks what he's doing. Jiryo explains that this is a gate that connects the top and the bottom. Without thinking twice, he jumps into the dark hole in front of him. He keeps falling through a beautiful starry space, completely calm. With a soft landing, he finally reaches the ground. Yunsung looks down in fear and says that even after jumping off cliffs, that is scary. Seeing his friend's reaction, Jiryo can only smile faintly, amused. A voice says that they finally made it to the top floor. The woman turns around and congratulates him for being the first to solve the maze so quickly. She finds it interesting that he found the emergency exit, but warns that it will be harder now. She introduces herself as CEO Esther, the CEO of the Korea Magic Tower, and says she'll take care of them. To finish, she tells them to sit down, surprising Yunsung. She asks Yunsung to introduce his friend, saying he seems like a very capable evaluator. The CEO explains that the maze was too difficult to solve with normal analysis skills. He realizes that she is the creator of the maze and introduces himself as Gireo. She says she likes talented people, and that since both of them use a rare element, they'll get along. Gireo is confused and asks what she means by rare element, making his friend nervous. The CEO explains that there aren't many awakened who use analysis skills, which makes him rare. Yunsung whispers to his friend and says she is one of the few who use the curse element. Jiryo remembers reading that she hunts monsters using negative status effects like slow. It is explained that since magic is recent, half of the awakened use simple magic like fire and strength. And there are even fewer people who use defensive or healing magic like Yunsung. Abilities like curses and mind control are even rarer, almost non-existent in the world. Gireo then apologizes for not recognizing her, and his apology skill levels up. The CEO says she understands that he's been busy and decides to get straight to the point of the meeting. She asks if Yunsung has any business with the gate owned by the Magic Tower, but Gireo interrupts and says that actually, he is the one who needs to enter the gate. He explains that since he is a low-level hunter, Yunsung scheduled the meeting for him. She then asks his rank, and Gireo hands over his hunter license for her to see. The CEO comments that his rank is very low, even by evaluator standards. He notices that she doesn't find it strange, and the woman asks why he wants to enter the gate. He assures her that he won't touch the trees, but she says it will still be difficult. The CEO accuses him of being a member of another guild, and says he came with Yunsung. She says she doesn't want another guild profiting from her hard work and her gate. The woman says that if he really wants to enter, it should be a guild-to-guild discussion. With a wicked smile, she tells his guild to come with a very reasonable entrance fee. Gireo thinks it's absurd since the portal is only rank D and she probably doesn't even know what's inside. But he interrupts and says that he actually doesn't belong to any guild, surprising her. Yunsung jumps in and confirms that Gireo has no guild, no team, and no friends. Gireo continues, saying he has never worked as an evaluator and only knows Yunsung. He assures her that no one else will profit, and that this is a purely personal favor he's asking. Seeing that she's interested, He says he doesn't want to enter for free and that it's time to negotiate. Hearing the proposal, the CEO gives a sinister smile that sends chills down his spine. A heavy dark aura bursts out of her as she lets out a strange, frightening laugh with a mischievous look, making the atmosphere even more tense. Giryo doesn't understand and thinks she's excited even before hearing the good part. She perks up and asks if he has advanced evaluation skills and still doesn't have a guild. The CEO slams the table and shouts that he should have said that from the start. Startled, Giryo can only sweat coldly and answer that yes, that's exactly it. She then invites him to join the magic tower and says she's hiring him right away. Yunsung whispers that big guilds need evaluators so they don't get scammed. He explains that since they can't see the purity of the stones, they need someone for that. Giryo understands and realizes that without an evaluator, they can easily lose a lot of money. The CEO then offers a bonus of 500 million won for him to sign the contract. Giryo is shocked and she asks if his friend's guild offered more money. She starts throwing a tantrum, complaining that people always steal the hunters she wants. Giryo thinks about how many bowls of pork soup he could buy with that money. The woman calms down and says that since she already has evaluators, his job will be very easy. He then asks if she really wants to hire him for all that money just to evaluate. She immediately confirms the offer, clapping her hands excitedly. Giryo clenches his fist and thinks there's no reason to refuse such an easy job. He feels a bit confused, and the CEO explains that the schedule is flexible, only 4 days a week. But just the idea of going to the office sends our protagonist into total panic. The scene changes, and we see a flashback of his past life, working late at his computer. It is explained that the only reason he reincarnated was to quit his job. He remembers how awful it was to deal with overtime and complaints all day. In despair, he grabs his head and thinks he can't go through that hell again. The CEO then pushes a contract toward him and asks what he thinks about the bonus. Yunsung is stunned by the amount of money, but Giryo apologizes and refuses the offer. He then turns his face away and says he will just pretend this proposal never happened. The woman doesn't understand the refusal, and he explains that the problem isn't the amount of money. In a very serious tone, he makes it clear that he has no desire to join a guild. The CEO's expression changes, and she says that if that's his wish, she will respect it. But she crosses her arms and warns that if he refuses the offer, he'll have to pay to enter. She doubts he has the money, but Giryo smiles and says he wants to negotiate. He then stands up and starts talking about a material that provides resistance against skills. He continues, saying that the building could withstand monster attacks because the material absorbs mana. He points at the window and comments that maintaining the tower's barrier must be expensive. With a confident air, he says that what he's offering covers the entrance fee. The CEO agrees that it would be more than enough and tells him to take as much as he wants. He then takes out a bag of sand and says he will tell her where to find the material. Yunsung remembers that the sand killed the fire golems and also absorbs mana. Giryo thinks it's a waste, but that sooner or later they would discover it anyway. So he decides to sell the information before it becomes worthless. The woman takes the bag and asks if the sand really has the effect he described. She questions him and doesn't understand why he would give such information for a stupid gate. The CEO asks if he isn't losing too much, but he says he's fine with it. He looks at her and says to think of it as two hunters with rare elements helping each other. The sun sets and Giryo calls out to the woman, who is sitting and relaxing at her desk. She takes a sip of coffee and asks if something happened with Giryo. With a slight smile, she seems satisfied and says it was nothing serious. She admits she played a small prank on the guests earlier, worrying her assistant. The assistant asks if she cast another curse on them, while the CEO just watches. The assistant complains, saying she promised she wouldn't do that anymore. But the CEO takes another sip of coffee and says it was just a silly curse, nothing serious. She explains that the curse was only meant to make them sneeze for 30 seconds. The woman then realizes that they didn't sneeze even once. She grows thoughtful and remembers that when they left, there wasn't a single sneeze. The CEO then recalls the moment she activated her curse skill in the office. Under normal conditions, Giryo should have started sneezing non-stop right away, but instead, he just took a sip of his drink, completely indifferent to her magic. She remembers how he lifted his head and stared at her with a cold, threatening look. That look made it clear that he knew exactly what she was trying to do. The CEO is shocked because he resisted a curse that even rank S hunters can't handle. She wonders where a monster like him came from, capable of nullifying her power. Just then, an employee enters and hands over the results of the analysis of the sand Giryo left. The employee says he must be trying to please the CEO, but she says that scares her. She then orders the team to get Giryo's profile because she needs to know who he is. The scene cuts to night, and we see the magic tower shining under the moonlight. Outside, Giryo is feeling sick, and Yunsung asks worriedly if he's okay. He swears he will never drink that coffee again, and that he will never forget its taste. We see a flashback of him drinking the coffee, which the CEO said was only for guests. But at the first sip, his eyes widen, and he realizes something is very wrong. The drink actually tastes like industrial glue, and he almost throws up right there in the room. He feels indignant, wondering how she could serve something like that to VIP guests. Their eyes meet, and she asks if he didn't like the coffee. Trembling, he forces a smile and says it's delicious so she won't realize he's an alien. It is explained that Giryo's body is being controlled by the magic of an alien, and because of that, it's impossible to control his body with drugs, hypnosis, or anything else. Not even the curse of a rank S hunter can affect the alien's powerful magic. Yunsung then asks about the sand, and Giryo says he's the only one who knows its secret. He adds that he's never heard of sand that puts out fire and makes buildings stronger. Giryo says he knows the material's value, but that he didn't register the item with the association. His friend then asks if he doesn't like the Hunters Association. Giryo takes a sip of water and replies that he was just trying to please Mrs. Seo. Yunsung freaks out at the answer and gets all worked up, unable to believe what he heard. He stutters and asks if the Magic Tower's CEO is his type. The atmosphere gets a bit awkward, and Giryo replies that he doesn't feel anything for her. Yunsung then changes the subject and looks at his friend with a very serious expression. He gets straight to the point and asks what's inside that gate that makes him take so many risks. The scene takes us to the next day, showing the simple building where our hero lives. In his room, Giryo wakes up stretching, complaining that his whole body hurts. Then he gets up to check if the items he collected were already drying properly. At that moment, a flashback begins, reminding us that he entered a gate with Yunsung after the deal. Inside, they ran into a bunch of ugly monsters that looked like evil fairies. Yunsung, with his tough guy attitude, prepares to use his tank skill to protect the area. With his shield, he attacks the monsters, sweeping the enemies away in one go. It is explained that thanks to this help, Giryo was able to get the items he needed. Back in the present, he admires the shining fairy wings, happy to have obtained the material. He chuckles, satisfied that his plan is going well and that everything is working out, determined to regain his former glory and past power. With that in mind, he decides to go to the fridge to eat something and recover his energy. But just as he's about to grab something, the doorbell rings, interrupting his snack. He turns around in surprise, wondering who it could be, since he wasn't expecting any visitors. Outside, two men in suits and sunglasses are waiting, looking anything but friendly. He opens the door slowly, thinking that if it's someone from his past, things could get complicated. When he opens it, he comes face to face with Yeon, who greets him and says they're from the association. The agent shows her badge and asks him to come with them, but he complains that he needs to eat. Confused, Giryo asks what's going on, but she just tells him to step outside first. Yeon apologizes for the sudden visit, but explains that it's their standard procedure. She takes a look at the mess in his apartment, and then decides to explain the reason for the visit. Jan reveals that he's being investigated on suspicion of having registered a false rank. Because of that, she summons him to go to the association for a power reassessment immediately. The guards stare at him with a sinister aura, making it clear that he'll be arrested if he doesn't comply. Giryo makes a blank, stunned face, realizing that today he'll be missing lunch. The scene cuts to a black van already taking the young man toward the association headquarters. We are introduced to Yeon, a serious woman who speaks in a very formal way. To understand why she appeared, the story goes back a few weeks into the past. The image focuses on Giryo's face, which seems to remember her with a certain resentment. He is drenched in sweat in the car, showing that he is sure something is going on involving that woman. The scene returns to the past, where Giryo firmly claimed that he was rank F. Jan is shocked and asks how he defeated a strong monster while being so weak. It is explained that this was when she began to suspect that he had lied about his rank. When she checked his records, her suspicion only grew. Even though his file said he was rank F, she continued her research, finding it very strange that he had only entered a gate once. The agent thinks the story doesn't add up, since a rank F wouldn't defeat a rank C monster. She becomes worried, because a hunter with a fake rank could be dangerous to everyone. But since she had no authority, she only wrote a report about the case and let it go. If nothing else had happened, the story would have ended right there with the report being filed. But a few days later, she was at home and got a shock from a piece of news on her PC. The article said that the rank S hunter Jung Hassang was the one who reported our hero. Back in the present, she reflects that she was surprised he cooperated with the investigation. She also remembers the place where he lived, which was a very small and rundown apartment. Jan wonders whether he is really poor or just pretending to fool people. The door opens and Giryo asks about the price of the test, and she tells him it's free. Jan warns that if his rank is fake, he will have to pay a very heavy fine. Giryo glances sideways, already feeling that things were about to go badly for him. Then they cross the association's lobby, passing by other hunters who were there. Giryo comments that the old measuring device doesn't work well on people with lung problems. He relaxes, thinking his plan was perfect since his lungs were in bad shape. But Yeon guides him to another room and says they use a new device for reevaluation. She explains that the old method was flawed, which is why they had already fixed that problem. The agent leads him to the machine and he panics, trying to say it was all a misunderstanding. Impatient, she grabs him by his robe and warns that the exam is starting right now. The guards then lift him up like a child and put him into the machine. He panics inside, thinking it couldn't be possible that his plan had fallen apart. The scene cuts to outside the building, as a voice announces that the results are out. Back in the room, the agent reads the results while Giryo trembles with cold and fear. She asks if he knows what happens to people who falsify their registration, making the atmosphere tense. His heart races, wondering if his immense power would finally be revealed. He tries to think of an excuse, imagining saying he's an alien, but quickly dismisses the idea. His only concern now is the fine, since he didn't have a single penny to his name. But to his surprise, the agent reveals the results and says he is free of all suspicion. She also says that his level went up a little, leaving Giryo even more confused. He then asks if it's normal for someone's power to increase, but she says that never happens. It finally sinks in, and he realizes that this human body really was rank F. With that, he understands that his magic didn't fail because of his lungs, but because he had no mana. A flash of clarity hits his mind, and he realizes that everything now makes sense. He remembers that in the cave, the giant golem hadn't even noticed his presence nearby. The stone monstrosity only focused on Yunsung's team, as if Giryo didn't even exist there. That creature was so powerful that it didn't even consider him a threat worth looking at. He was so weak to the golem that he wasn't even seen as an invader, just a nobody. Back in the present, he suddenly starts laughing for no reason, leaving Jan very confused. With a serious look, he finally accepts the truth. His reincarnation magic had failed, and now he was trapped on this planet, living as the weakest mage in existence. He walks down the street, thinking that it was good to find out the truth and get rid of his suspicions. Then Giryo stops and calls out to the agent, making her turn toward him. Jan asks if he's okay, worried about the side effects of the test on weak people. He thanks her for her concern and assures her that he's fine, even though she still thinks he looks terrible. But then Giryo changes the subject and asks how she knew he would be at home. She explains with a smile that it's her seeker ability, a power to track people and objects. And while she's talking about her job, the boy interrupts her, grabbing her arm tightly. With a frightened look, he asks her to look at the ground right in front of them. On the asphalt, they see a strange, dark shadow that looks like a blood-soaked body. Jan freezes in shock, her eyes wide, unable to believe what she's seeing. On the ground, there was only a dead raccoon, probably run over by some passing car. Giryo crouches down to look at the animal up close, while the agent says this is common. But out of nowhere, he picks up the animal and says it would be a waste to leave it there. She gets scared and tells him to drop it, but Giryo hugs the animal and says he can wash it. With the raccoon in his arms, he says goodbye and says he's heading back home. He mentions that he lives right around the corner, leaving the agent unsure of what to say. Jan watches him go, thinking that maybe the boy just wanted to bury the little animal. We are told that there are two types of golems, the first being made of stone and metal. The other type is organic golems, made from the bodies of animals that have already died. Giryo feels extremely happy, because now he had the perfect test subject for his new magic. The agent stands still in the street, just watching the boy walk away with the raccoon in his arms. She ends up thinking that he has a good side, not knowing his true and sinister intentions. Night falls, and the scene takes us back to our hero's simple, small apartment. At home, he tries to mix the items, but complains that he can't get things to combine. He scratches his head in confusion, thinking that the humidity is messing up his crazy experiment. And right when he's thinking about his rank F magic, his phone starts vibrating non-stop. Giryo gets really irritated, wondering who the idiot is calling at this hour. We are told that he added a rare skill to his profile without knowing it was public. Because of this ability, he now keeps receiving offers from guilds and hunters. Already exhausted, he throws himself backward in tiredness, but the damn phone rings again. With an unfriendly look, he grabs the phone to see what it is this time. On the screen, a chocolate advertisement appears, claiming to be the tastiest candy in the world. He gets completely confused, wondering if the girl in the ad wanted him to meet her. And even though he's very sleepy, the boy leaves his house, walking alone through a very dark alley. He thinks it would be rude to ignore the invitation, but the sound of a car suddenly interrupts him. A black car stops right in front of him, and Giryo stands there without understanding anything. The boy approaches the vehicle, still trying to process what is happening in the alley. Through the window, he stares at two men and mockingly asks why the hell they stopped there. One of them gets out of the car and stares at him closely, complaining that he has no manners. In the blink of an eye, a stranger appears and rushes straight toward him. The stranger grabs him from behind, putting him in a chokehold that leaves him completely helpless. He tries to break free, but the grip is too strong, making Giryo tremble with fear. His vision starts to darken, and the last thing he sees is the silhouette of his attacker. Sometime later, he wakes up with a headache, lamenting how weak he is against brute force. The boy realizes that his hands are tied, having no idea how long he was unconscious. With his eyes blindfolded, he tries to understand where the hell they took him. Sitting on a chair, he thinks about how dangerous this planet is, until a voice calls out to him from afar. Nearby, two guys are talking, and one of them confirms that he is the rank F they captured. Hearing that, he realizes the ambush was planned, and that they attacked him as a group. One of the thugs warns that the product needs to stay intact and tells the other to handle it. Suddenly, Giryo hears someone else arriving, who seems to be the boss of everything. Then Chungho appears, treated with great respect by the other guys there. Chungho orders his men to prepare the product because he wants to take a look. With a sinister smile, Chungho notices that the product is already awake, staring at Gireo. He gets startled, wondering how the guy knew he was awake while watching him approach. Then, a hand wearing a black glove pulls off his blindfold, revealing what is happening. The blindfold flies off his face, and he finally manages to see the place and who kidnapped him. It was Chungho who greets him with a mocking smile, saying it had been a while. Gireo is confused and asks what he's doing there, but the villain offers to explain. He says that the news about a hunter with an incredible appraisal skill had already spread, but the big problem was that this super rare hunter was nothing more than a simple rank F. With a threatening look, he steps closer and says that makes him the perfect target for criminals. Then the villain laughs and reveals that their plan is simply to sell him on the black market. He explains that hiring an appraiser is expensive, so kidnapping one is much cheaper. Gireo stands there processing everything, his blood boiling with anger for being so naive. Then Chungho reveals that low rankers are easy to brainwash and use. The thugs laugh, and Gireo understands why Chungho was called a VIP client by them. Even without hope, he asks for help, but the villain refuses and says he's only there as a customer. And then the bastard leaves, waving goodbye and leaving our hero furious behind him. The thugs receive orders to take the rank F upstairs, since another product is already arriving. Tied up, he bitterly regrets it, thinking he never should have reincarnated on this cursed planet. Suddenly, the door of a room opens and the guys throw him inside roughly. Two guards wearing gas masks appear, and one says he's without a blindfold, but the other doesn't care. With a loud noise, the metal door closes, leaving our hero locked in there alone. He sits on the floor, finding it strange that they left him alone and realizing he wouldn't be sold yet. But then he pauses, sensing that something very strange is going on in that room. A sweet floral scent starts filling the place, coming from a small table in the corner. He looks closely and sees a small box releasing smoke, wondering if it's a magical artifact. It's an item meant to induce sleep, but he brags that for a great mage like him, it won't work. But his focus shifts and he starts moving, trying to escape from the ropes. With the shoelace in his mouth, he rubs it against the rope holding him, praying the friction will snap it. The friction heats up the rope, which starts smoking and almost catches fire from the effort. And with a snap, the rope finally breaks, and the boy celebrates that his plan worked. He crawls toward the door, thinking it would be dangerous to be sold without being able to use magic. The first thing he thinks about is reporting them, and he starts looking for his phone. But the device isn't there, and he realizes that the kidnappers obviously took his belongings. He slams his hand on the floor, thinking about what else he could use to escape. Then his eyes turn to the magical artifact releasing that golden, sleep-inducing smoke. He grabs the small box by its chain, accepting that it's all he has to get out of there. Outside, two thugs were standing guard, just waiting for time to pass in the dark corridor. But suddenly, the sound of an explosion coming from the room startles both guards immediately. They don't understand anything, coughing and trying to protect themselves from that strange smoke. From within the smoke, Gireo appears and smashes one of the guys right in the face with the artifact. The thug staggers backward, grumbling and unable to believe how he managed to escape. The man's vision becomes blurry and he completely blacks out, collapsing hard onto the floor. Gireo stands there, staring at the unconscious thug lying on the corridor floor. He then looks at the small box in his hand and comments that the item was much more effective than he expected. The boy thinks about running away, but then he sees the phone one of the guys dropped. He bends down and picks up the device, thinking that today luck was finally on his side. Then he remembers that normal humans usually call a number in moments of danger. The phone rings and soon a voice answers, asking what the emergency is. He says he was kidnapped, but the operator can't hear him and asks him to speak louder. So he leans against the wall and shouts into the phone that he was kidnapped, hoping for help. He finds it strange that they can't hear him and wonders if the phone he found is broken. Then he gets the idea to send a message, thinking that at least the text would go through. But then the phone beeps, and it's just an automatic response from the emergency system. He sends another message asking about the time, but gets the same robotic reply as before. The boy lies down on the floor in frustration, feeling that reporting it didn't work and that he was on his own. Seeing that it wouldn't work, he decides he needs backup and sends a message to Yunsung. With the report made, he puts the phone in his pocket and grabs the magic box again. Gireo stands up with the artifact in hand, determined to leave that warehouse once and for all. Then, two more thugs appear, casually walking through the place without suspecting anything. Suddenly, they stop, and one of them nudges the other, asking what that was up ahead. Golden smoke fills the corridor, and sounds of fighting come from within it. From the shadows of the smoke, someone starts to emerge, and they wonder if it's a coworker. Then Gireo appears in the middle of the smoke, spinning the artifact by its chain with a cold stare. He throws the small box upward with force, building momentum to start his attack, and with a swift motion he launches the artifact, using the chain like a deadly whip. The artifact hits the thug square in the face, leaving his partner in total shock. The other guy panics and shouts that he's the awakened one they kidnapped. But he doesn't even have time to react and gets smashed right in the middle of the head too. With both of them on the ground, he realizes these magic items work best on the nose. Now he needs to find an exit, But he doesn't know the building and the windows are blocked. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he senses something very different in the air. A strong vibration of magical energy appears, and he immediately realizes it's a portal. He's absolutely sure there's a portal outside, very close to that warehouse. We are told that portals usually appear in open places like fields and hills. He thinks about using the portal to escape, but soon hears more thugs shouting that he got away. With no time to lose, our hero starts running down the stairs to try to escape. But out of nowhere, his leg starts throbbing and he gets frustrated, complaining that he barely ran and his leg was already failing him. Then the thugs appear at the top of the stairs and one of them shouts, warning that he's there. Angrily, they order each other to capture the rank F, unable to believe a weakling tried to escape. One of the thugs panics when he sees the item and yells for the rest of the gang to be careful. But Gireo just tightens his grip on the artifact and says it's already too late for them to run. With a quick spin, he throws the small box toward them, spreading golden smoke. The thugs start coughing desperately, cursing because of the powder in the air. From within the smoke, our hero appears once again, swinging the artifact for another attack. But one of the guys manages to grab the item and curses the rank F for being so stubborn. Then the thug charges forward, using the chain to try to pull and strike the boy. But Gireo manages to restrain him with a quick move using his arm. The brute grabs him by the neck and says he'll make an exception and dirty his hands. But the boy grips his hand tightly and with a fast motion, lands a knee strike to his chin. The blow sends the thug flying backward, crashing to the floor, already knocked out. After the fight, our hero finally collapses to the ground, completely exhausted. He lies there, panting on the stairs, surrounded by the bodies of the thugs he defeated. Then he looks to the side and notices that the magical artifact has started acting strangely. The small box stops glowing, and he realizes the item's mana ran out in the middle of his escape. He thinks it will be harder to flee now, but suddenly a blue light catches his attention. It has to be the exit, because he can feel the portal's vibration right behind that door. Limping, he walks over, thinking that a door that big could only lead outside. And to his luck, when he tries to open it, he realizes it wasn't even locked. With pure determination in his eyes, he opens the door, hoping to finally find freedom. But a thug arrives shouting that he escaped, and Gireo runs into more people downstairs. A boss wearing a hat gets furious, asking what the hell a portal is doing in there. The thug awkwardly apologizes while our hero doesn't understand what's going on. He panics because with Chungho inside, he couldn't sense his energy and escape earlier. The boss yells at him, demanding to know what that rank F did to the guards upstairs. The boss's right-hand man doubts he defeated everyone alone, thinking it's impossible and that he registered a fake rank to trick them. He thinks that if he keeps his composure, he still has a chance, since they don't know about the weapon. The only problem is Chungho, who ruins any chance of bluffing and getting out alive. So the boss in the hat apologizes to Chungho, lamenting the mess in the middle of their deal. And the boss asks Chungho for help to catch the hunter who escaped before midnight. Gireo feels indignant, thinking the guy is shameless for asking help from his VIP client. But to everyone's surprise, Chungho agrees to help, saying they're in the same boat. He then turns to Gireo and says he'll even give a discount on his purchase. Chungho steps closer and mocks him, saying his product is almost broken already. Desperate, Gireo wonders about the police, while Chungho tells him to start running already. He keeps provoking him, saying that if the path is clear, he'll pity his effort. But Gireo stares back and asks if he has ever seen him run away even once. Chungho is surprised by the question, not understanding the audacity of that rank F. With a firm gaze, our hero keeps staring at him, making the atmosphere tense. The scene shows us a quick flashback of their past encounters. Chungho realizes that every time, Gireo never ran away from him, not even once. Chungho asks if this time he also won't run away, keeping the tension high. With an evil smile, he snaps his fingers and challenges Gireo to a fight right there. But the boy surprises everyone and says he will simply surrender, raising his hands. Chungho doesn't believe it and asks if he's given up after all the trouble he caused. With a serious look, Gireo admits that he also wouldn't trust someone who just escaped. He wonders what to do, and suddenly a green aura starts coming out of his body. Gireo turns around in surprise, not understanding what that strange energy is. Suddenly, a portal opens, and from it comes a man who calls out to the boss with a smile. Gireo is startled, thinking that it was another portal inside the warehouse, but he quickly corrects himself, realizing it was a magical teleportation portal. The man who arrived says he is punctual and that Koreans like people who keep their promises. The boss in the hat turns to Chungho and asks if that is the transporter. We are told that the man is a rare mage with the ability to teleport people. With all the attention on the mage, Gireo wonders if he should take the chance to escape, but the mage turns to Chungho and greets him, releasing a very powerful green energy. He is about to shake his hand, but suddenly Chungho attacks with a green energy strike. The attack explodes directly, throwing the transporter mage away with the force of the impact. The boss in the hat is shocked and starts screaming desperately, not understanding the betrayal. He shouts Chungho's name while the transporter falls to the ground, already covered in blood. But Chungho isn't shaken at all and just clenches his fist, ignoring the boss's anger. Then the old man explains that he spent a lot of money to get rid of that guy, because they always escape. With a sideways smile, Chungho says he never wanted to get involved in that gang's mess. In the middle of the chaos, Gireo just watches, not understanding the villain's fight. But then Chungho changes his expression and says things will be different now. He says that trafficking and awakened from his territory is a problem he will take care of. One thug panics and yells for the boss to run and enter the portal to escape, but Chungho is faster and lands an energy punch right in the middle of the thug. The man flies back and slams into the wall, while our hero watches the absurd power. We are told that they couldn't fight before because ranks only went up to A at first. But over time, hunters much stronger than rank A began appearing in the world. Because of that, a new rank was created, known as the feared and powerful rank S. They are basically the predators at the top of the food chain, the peak of strength in this world. With the rest of his men defeated, the boss in the hat trembles in fear in the corner. He falls to the ground and starts begging for mercy, crawling toward Chungho. But the blue-haired hunter just stares at him with contempt, doubting that plea. With a sadistic smile, he calls the boss's request useless, leaving the old man terrified. From afar, Gireo watches the screams and thinks he shouldn't have messed with Chungho. But suddenly, the sound of loud sirens echoes through the warehouse, surprising them both. The scene cuts to outside the building, showing that several police cars have surrounded the place. Chungho turns to Gireo and asks if he was the one who called the police, and he confirms it. The elite hunter stays silent for a moment, trying to understand the logic of the situation. Then he warns them not to mix him up with the gang, since he was just stopping hero trafficking. But Gireo replies that this is the police's job, and Chungho fires back that they are slow. We are told that the police are understaffed, because many became hunters and quit their old jobs. Chungho finds their speed strange and says the rank F must have pulled some strings. Chungho says he's curious but won't ask, and gives him a pat on the shoulder. And suddenly the bastard turns his back and walks away, leaving Gireo in total panic. With the sirens getting louder, our hero curses, already imagining the trouble ahead. He realizes that with Chungho escaping, the blame for all that mess will fall on him. And as expected, the officer's feet are soon seen running into the abandoned warehouse. The police storm the place and shout for him to surrender, ordering him to raise his hands. An officer grabs him roughly, and he tries to explain that he was the victim who reported it. But the cop doesn't listen and immediately arrests him for crimes involving other awakened. They drag him outside and he shouts that they can't arrest an innocent alien like that. But as they are leaving, a familiar voice calls out to him, making the officers stop. It's Jan, who arrives out of breath and is shocked to see our hero like that. She asks why he's handcuffed, while the officer asks if she knows him. The agent confirms that he was the victim, and the officer removes the cuffs, apologizing. Now free, he asks how she got there, and she explains that Yunsung was the one who alerted her. She shows her phone, and he sees that his friend got the message and sent the right help. The agent explains that Yunsung is busy in a dungeon and received the message on his way there. And after that, she used her tracking ability to run all the way here. Then, a police officer says that the fallen men are human traffickers wanted by the authorities. Jan is shocked, because it was the organization that kidnapped and sold heroes overseas. The officer comments that the group hid well, but now the organization is finished. He then asks if Gireo did everything, but Gireo puts the blame on Chungho. But the officer insists, asking about the guys on the first floor, and he admits it was him. With no way out, the boy sighs and says he has no choice but to explain. He then says he only did all that to defend himself, leaving the agent surprised by the story. And Jan starts connecting the dots, thinking the whole story sounds poorly told and strange. She looks at the crime scene, seeing the bodies, the portal, and our hero in the middle. The agent notices that he is far too calm for someone who was almost sold and not even injured. She begins to doubt whether he was really kidnapped or if there is something else behind it. Her suspicion only grows, and she wonders if he planned all of this from the start. Back at his apartment, sunlight fills the street, showing that a new day has begun. He thinks he didn't want things to reach that point, but what's done is done. But at least he got a magical item for free, so in a way he came out ahead. The boy looks at the small box, thinking it must be rare since it can be recharged. And even though he got in trouble with the police, he forgets about it and focuses on his plan. He picks up the artifact again, thinking the sleep effect probably only works on humans. But while thinking about that, the loud whistle of the kettle interrupts him, warning that the water boiled. He turns off the stove quickly, excited that his experiment is finally working. With a wide smile, he pours the water, seeing that the color turned out perfect. Gireo lifts the cup, thinking himself the greatest mage of all for doing that on a backward planet. And the result is an energy amplifier, a potion that lets him use magic for a while. He drinks the potion in one go, feeling magical energy flow through his entire body. After drinking, he takes a deep breath and realizes his breathing is normal, with no problems. We are told that the effect only lasts 5 minutes. enough time to cast a single spell, so he prepares to cast his first magic on Earth, releasing a blue aura. He focuses the energy on his leg, using magic to fix the muscle and kneecap. With the same magic, he stabilizes his physical condition to prevent his body from aging. After a flash, the energy disappears and he steps on the ground, wondering if it worked. Gireo jumps excitedly, celebrating that it worked, and that the pain in his leg is finally gone. But he knows the journey will be long, and that this body's mana level is garbage. The remaining energy fades from his hand, and he realizes he can't rely on these potions. Still, he clenches his fist in determination, thinking that a success is still a success in the end. To stay positive, he decides to get something to eat and opens the fridge door. But once again, the doorbell rings at the worst time, and he wonders who it could be. He goes to the door, thinking it might be Jan, and opens it to see who it is. At the door stands an old man in a beret, greeting him and saying he was going to call him. Gireo's body remembers the man, and he realizes it's the building's landlord. The old man apologizes for showing up like this, and the boy greets him awkwardly. The old man asks if things have been tough this month, leaving our hero confused. Then comes the bombshell. The old man says he still hasn't paid the apartment rent. The landlord hands him the bills, saying that 3 months of rent are already overdue. He panics, surrounded by debts for rent, gas, electricity, and even heating. Then the old man says he'll only wait until the end of the month for the money. The landlord reveals that the total debt is already over 3 million. In shock, Gireo bows and agrees to pay, knowing he'll be evicted if he fails. He closes the door to his apartment, already realizing that he is completely screwed in life. With slime on his shoulder, he thinks that if he doesn't pay the debt, he'll end up on the street. The boy looks at the papers and sees that the total comes to almost 2 million. He stands there wondering where to get the money, wishing he had some forgotten cash somewhere. But suddenly, a ray of hope appears, and a crazy idea shines in his mind. He runs desperately toward his phone, thinking it's his last available option. With a serious look, he decides it's time to collect some money he buried. So he makes a call and coldly asks if that is Chungho's number. The scene shifts to a luxury building as Gireo asks about settlement money. On the other end, Chungho answers, mockingly bringing up an old traffic accident. Chungho asks with a smile how much money our hero needs. Gireo feels awkward and starts researching online a fair amount to demand. He reads that in accidents, people usually ask for at least 3 million won. He thinks he needs 2 million. But that Chungho owes him much more than that. When the villain threatens to hang up, he panics and shouts that he wants 3 million. Chungho stays silent for a moment, and the boy asks if that amount is possible. With a sigh, the blue-haired hunter says he's speechless and starts using his phone. And suddenly, Gireo receives a notification that the money has been deposited. He's shocked that the guy sent the full amount without even questioning it. After paying the bills, he realizes there's almost nothing left, and a tear falls. In the middle of his sadness, his phone rings again, and he sees it's Yunsung. He realizes he didn't even thank his friend and thinks he's calling out of concern. But with his head full, he decides to ignore the call and presses the decline button. Then a brilliant idea appears, and he remembers that rank A hunters earn a fortune. The scene cuts to a cafe, and he thanks Yunsung, saying he'd be dead without him. He says he wanted to buy lunch to thank him, but Yunsung says coffee is enough. His friend happily thanks him for the coffee, but Gireo doesn't care, only thinking about the bad smell making him nauseous. Then they go to the counter, and while Yunsung orders an Americano, Gireo orders a latte, but then he drops a bomb, asking for the drink without coffee, leaving everyone confused. The clerk gets flustered, and Gireo wonders if he looks like an alien again. Sitting at the table, Yunsung says he was really shocked when he got the message. He apologizes for not going, but Gireo says he knew he was busy. His friend explains that the situation was bad, so he had to ask Jan for help. With a sly look, Gireo praises his friend to break the ice, already setting up his move. He then asks if Yunsung has only been clearing dungeons lately, surprising him. He firmly asks when the last time they went together was, and Gireo stares at him seriously, and bluntly asks if he's still afraid of entering portals. Yunsung sits there with his hands clasped, looking down, embarrassed to answer. With a cold sweat, he admits that yes, to be honest, he's still afraid to go in. Gireo takes a sip of his drink and thinks he already suspected that answer. We are shown a flashback where Yunsung comes face to face with a huge, ugly monster. To make things worse, he was betrayed by a teammate who left him to die. The image shows him lying on the ground, feeling the fear of death slowly suffocating him. Back in the present, we see that the experience was too traumatic for the young student. But Gireo says that even so, he can't keep following a rank F like him. He tells his friend that he needs to form a new team or start hunting alone. Yunsung nods, but immediately looks like a lost puppy. Gireo notices the sadness and thinks about how he doesn't want to abandon a friend like him. Then he says he can help him with his abilities or control his magic better. Suddenly, his friend starts glowing with excitement, surprised by Gireo's offer. Yunsung gets excited and asks if it's serious, saying he'd love to be trained. With a sigh, Gireo taps his finger on the cup, satisfied with the result. He thinks about how easy it was to hook his friend and already takes the chance to invite him to the portal. The scene cuts to a place with a golden sky full of fire and very dark clouds. Gireo enters the portal, pleased that everything is going according to his plan. They enter a rank D portal called Maximus Temple, which was close to the cafe. The place wasn't popular, so it became the perfect training ground for them. Gireo stops in the middle of the temple and tells his friend that the area is good enough. He then asks Yunsung to show his main abilities to start the training. Yunsung takes a deep breath and says he gets nervous using his skills in front of him, but he focuses and releases a large amount of blue energy from his body. A barrier of hexagonal shields forms, showing the hunter's defensive power. With one last effort, he slams the shield into the ground, releasing a wave of energy. It is explained that this skill creates a protective barrier in front of the user. With an eager smile, he asks what Gireo thought of his demonstration. Gireo stares at the shield and says he has only one question for him. He points and asks why he only protects the front. Yunsung explains that the skill has been like that since he awakened, and Gireo understands. Gireo thinks it's like watching a chimpanzee use a knife for the first time. He tells Yunsung that the skill should defend from all sides, not just the front. Gireo explains that the shield shouldn't be flat, but like a glass dome. Yunsung concentrates and tries to change the shape of his hexagonal shield barrier, but he says he can increase the size, he just can't change the shield's form. Gireo gets irritated and calls the hunter an idiot for not understanding. Then he steps closer and tells him to try again, with more calm and focus. He touches his friend's chest and tells him to imagine the energy spreading like a ball. Yunsung makes a helpless face and says he doesn't think it's working. Gireo gives him a light smack and tells him to stop whining and focus. He asks his friend to keep the image in his mind to shape the skill's energy. Yunsung nods and tries again, this time with more determination. The training continues, with Gireo yelling and correcting every mistake mercilessly. After 20 long minutes of intense training, Yunsung is panting from exhaustion, but all the effort is worth it, and he finally manages to create the protective dome. Yunsung shouts excitedly, asking if he did it and if it really worked. But he says he can't move, and the dome starts cracking all over. With a sound like breaking glass, the barrier shatters into 1,000 pieces, leaving the hunter stunned. He feels discouraged that the shield broke, but Gireo comforts him and says he'll improve. Gireo thinks that now that his friend has done it once, he'll soon master the technique. Yunsung thanks him for the help, saying he never imagined using his skill that way. It is explained that mana is closely tied to the mind, which is why arrogant people do well. Yunsung calls out to him, pulling him out of his thoughts about mages and mental powers. He asks excitedly what the next part of the training will be, already ready for more. With a serious look, Gireo says that now they're going to practice for real, against monsters. Out of nowhere, a giant skeleton soldier appears, swinging a huge sword at them. Yunsung doesn't even blink and gets ready to test his new ability in action. The monster attacks with everything it has, but the energy dome easily holds the blow. He moves forward with the shield and prepares to use one of his attack skills. With a powerful strike from his shield, he attacks the monster, cutting it in half, and he realizes that another attack is coming. The skeleton raises its axe, ready to strike with all its strength, but Yunsung is faster and blocks the attack. He runs toward the monster with his shield ready for a direct strike and shatters the skeleton's axe. With a quick movement, he charges at the skeleton, ready to finish the fight, and with a precise blow, he destroys the monster, which breaks into 1,000 pieces in midair. Gireo praises his friend, saying that the power difference of a rank A is absurd. With the fight over, he turns around and thinks that now it's his turn to act. On the ground, the monster's head glows, revealing the magic stones he wanted so badly. While his friend is fighting, he takes the chance to grab the stones, pretending to be casual. His plan was simple: steal all the loot without Yunsung even noticing. With his hands full of crystals, he thinks that this would already support him for a month. He steps on his cloak, thinking this way is much better than asking for money. He thinks he can't anger the rank A and that he'll take everything quietly without him noticing. Then he approaches Yunsung and asks how he's feeling about the training. Gireo notices his friend's reaction, realizing that something very strange is in the air. Yunsung is just panting, with a vacant look that makes our hero very suspicious. He starts to break out in a cold sweat, wondering if his friend discovered his plan to steal the loot. It's explained that Yunsung had never truly felt admiration for anyone in his life. As a teenager, he didn't care about idols or sports stars, thinking it was all nonsense. The most he ever felt was a slight impression, just thinking they were talented people. But today, he finally understood the meaning of the word reverence. Looking at Gireo, he is shocked and wonders how that's possible, how his friend managed to do that. Yunsung doesn't understand how he discovered the hidden use of the skill just by looking. He thinks there's no skill that detects flaws, and Gireo isn't even from the analysis class. The only explanation is that he bought the evaluation skill, but that wouldn't make sense. He concludes that, as expected, Gireo isn't an ordinary guy, not in the slightest. Gireo snaps his fingers and pulls his friend out of his thoughts, And Yunsung turns his head immediately. He asks again if he's getting the hang of it, and his friend responds embarrassedly. Yunsung says he feels pathetic for not being able to use the skill properly. He clenches his fist tightly and promises to master the technique as fast as possible. With a bow, he apologizes for taking up the precious time of his new master, but Gireo just calls him by name with a serious expression and firm tone of voice. He tells him not to rush as they can continue training later. With a smile, he says he'll help tomorrow, and then for as long as his friend wants. Yunsung feels moved, thinking that Gireo even lies to avoid making him feel bad. He realizes that Gireo is a rare person and wants to reciprocate the kindness. With a sparkle in his eyes, he asks if there's anything he wants or needs him to do. Gireo feels embarrassed and stammers that he doesn't want anything, leaving his friend touched. Yunsung realizes that his friend has no greed. Unlike many people out there, Gireo is all sweaty, thinking about how ridiculous his friend's question was. Yunsung turns his back, thinking he never imagined not being able to even thank properly. He then understands and says he will follow the advice and end training for today. The two begin walking out of the portal, with Yunsung already excited. He thinks he will train a lot to get strong and be able to help his new friend one day. Gireo has a nagging feeling, wondering if his friend noticed anything. He glances at the ground, but sees that his friend didn't even care about the loot left behind. Gireo concludes that for a rank A, those magic stones probably aren't worth anything. He thinks that at this pace, he'll be able to farm even in rank B and C portals. With a smirk, he realizes that just today's loot already covers the rent. But suddenly his expression changes, and a bluish aura surrounds him, making the atmosphere tense. Now outside the portal, Jan waits with a very displeased look. As they step out, they come face to face with the agent, standing in the middle of the park watching them. She greets Yunsung and complains that they took too long for a rank D portal. The agent says she came to give information, but ends up glaring at Gireo. With her heels clicking on the ground, she approaches and questions him in a cold voice. She asks what a rank F is doing coming out of a class D portal after all. Jan recalls that he was suspected of fraud and that soon after being released, she caught him entering an illegal portal, and Gireo panics for not thinking of that. Yunsung tries to defend his friend, but Gireo interrupts, saying he entered as a carrier. But the agent doesn't buy the excuse and says his bag is too small for that. She then turns to Yunsung and warns him that the illegal entry is also a problem for him. But Gireo cuts her off and explains that the rules don't restrict carrier entries. Jan retorts, saying that the rule is for real carriers, not for him to abuse it. She glares at him angrily and asks if he doesn't realize that this attitude makes him more suspicious. The agent explains that rank Fs follow the rules, and that him ignoring them puts him in the crosshairs. Gireo shrinks back and agrees to cooperate, knowing it was the only thing he could say. He remembers that because she treated him normally, he forgot the agent was a powerful rank B. With that rank, she could tear a lion in half, so irritating her was not a good idea. At that moment, she turns to Yunsung and summons him for a change in the response area. Gireo realizes that not even a rank A can do anything against the association. He laments that he won't be able to use this method anymore while his friend says goodbye. Gireo turns his back and thinks that he has no choice but to go along with the plan. He reveals that he already had a plan B, since he knew that sooner or later everything would fall apart. As they walk away, Yeon gives him one last suspicious glance. The next day, he wakes up already checking the news and sees one about a new item. It is explained to us that he developed the habit of gathering information as soon as the day begins. He realizes that because of that, he didn't have any info, since the item appeared for the first time just now. Looking at the bracelet and thinking that he kept it hoping Hassang would look for him again. With a click, he puts the item on his wrist and sees that it fit perfectly on his arm. He then gets ready to leave, saying that he is going to use the bracelet because the experiment is dangerous. Gireo walks through a forest, searching for a specific place he already knew. And in the middle of the woods, he finally finds what he was looking for, a greenish portal. The sign next to it confirms that it was a rank F portal, the lowest that exists. It is explained to us that there are blue and red portals, and that this blue one has no boss. In these portals, monsters just keep appearing non-stop until a certain number is defeated. He says that he is there to hunt, since he can go in and out more freely to practice. With Yeon on his tail, he decided to hunt rank F monsters to pay the bills. He looks at the blue and clear sky of the portal, preparing to begin the hunt. As he enters, he is faced with a green and flowery field, very open and peaceful. But in the distance, he already spots his target, a herd of monsters grazing on the hill. It is explained to us that they are mountain goats, monsters that bleat like a broken violin. He opens a green potion and comments that they are the most dangerous monsters of rank F. And because they are dangerous, they also give a good profit, so he drinks the potion. With a blue flash, his eyes glow and he says that he is already full of energy. A blue aura bursts from his body, showing that he is filled with the power of magic. The energy is so great that the goats notice immediately, turning to see what it was. With a smile, he says they finally noticed and creates a fireball in his hand. He says that it was already too late and that his magic speed is the greatest on Earth. With a quick movement, he launches the fireball, which flies toward the herd. With a cold stare, he orders the creatures to turn to ashes with all his power. The giant fireball heads toward one of the goats, which just stands still. But to his surprise, the attack has no effect at all, and the goat stands there staring at him. The monster growls, and its eyes glow in a red of pure anger and fury. With its whole body reddish, the goat snorts, preparing to attack with everything. The creature charges toward him, drooling with rage and ready to destroy him. Gireo and the slime panic and begin screaming desperately at the danger. He runs through the forest, cursing himself for trusting a rank F magic power. Gireo takes a look back and sees that the beast was still on his tail, not giving up. He screams again while the goat chases him with impressive speed. The monster runs faster and faster, leaving our hero with no chance to escape. He curses and keeps running with everything he has, trying to reach salvation. In the distance, he spots the portal and runs faster, thinking he was almost there, but he panics, thinking he wouldn't make it, and that he wouldn't have time to reach it. The goat almost reaches him, nearly biting him, but luckily he exits the portal before the goat can bite him. He looks at the portal and feels relieved that the goat couldn't get out of there. With his heart racing, he realizes that this body's magical energy is complete trash. But suddenly he gets startled when he hears a voice right behind him in the forest. A man with a smile on his face greets him, saying it had been a long time. He approaches, but Gireo doesn't recognize him and coldly asks who he is. The guy introduces himself as Jae-hyun and says that they entered a portal together in the beginning. Gireo gets worried, because if he knows the body's former owner, he needs to be careful. To disguise it, he purposely gets the guy's name wrong to see what his reaction would be. Jae-hyun starts rambling, remembering a time when they ran away from a rank F monster. With the guy talking non-stop, Gireo cuts him off and asks what he is doing there. Jae-hyun corrects him, saying they are friends and that there is no need for formality. He scratches the back of his neck and apologizes, saying he is forgetful, trying to cover up the slip. Gireo thinks that he can't brush him off because he might have important information. Then Jae-hyun invites him to hunt in a group, since they met there by chance. With a smile, he says that hunting alone is difficult and that they have an open spot. Jae-hyun points into the distance, showing his team and calling Gireo to meet them. In the background, 3 hunters were waiting, watching the 2 of them talk with some curiosity. He explains that those are his teammates, the ones he hunts with now. Jae-hyun introduces the leader, an axe-wielding guy who was already rank D, very impressive. He quickly asks what he thinks and invites him to enter a portal right away. But Gireo refuses, saying that he used all his mana and can't hunt anymore today. He thinks that in reality, it was because he had already used his entire dose of the amplifier. But to his surprise, Jae-hyun smiles and says they are not looking for someone to hunt. He explains that the one who didn't show up today was the porter they had hired. With mischievous smiles, the other team members ask him to be their porter. And with the promise of good payment, Gireo feels tempted to accept the offer. He thinks that if it is just to hold the bags, it might be a good opportunity to observe.